Chapter 3077. The news from the Nightmare faction was about the Awakening Altar. It was the second Awakening Altar, and it would be open to all Protoss factions. As soon as the news came out, the factions that originally intended to trade with the natives immediately gave up on the idea. This indicated that everyone would have a chance to awaken. Although they would have to wait, there was finally hope. The Protoss who originally wanted to obtain resources to quickly break through to rank 3 and leave this place also changed their minds. Under such circumstances, they would definitely have a chance. Therefore, they would not cooperate with the enemy, even if the enemy offered a higher price. Even if they wanted to obtain a quota, they would have to exchange resources. Because they wanted to stay for a long time, they would not give the enemy the slightest chance to strengthen themselves. Also causing great trouble for the natives were many Protoss miners. They were slowly leaving because they would gain more if they stayed in the outer factions. The Nightmare faction spread the news because Li AI had returned after awakening her power and told them the coordinates of the altar. After that, Li AI was with Yichen and the others, chatting about things that Zichen found extremely boring but that they found extremely interesting. The room was full of chatter and laughter. Zichen could not get a word in, so he could only leave and go patrol the faction. Ever since the incident with Perry's faction, Zichen's Nightmare faction did not recruit anyone. After the quota was opened, it was always given to those in the Nightmare faction. Now that Li AI had returned and there was another Awakening Altar available, he chose to open it up. Of course, when the news spread, Zichen would also spread the news about the earthly realm. This was because only those who had walked through the earthly realm could quickly break through. Zichen's move was also to let the other factions have more powerhouses who could fight against the heavenly beasts, so that they would have the power to protect themselves. The altar was infinitely enlarged by Li AI. It could awaken 1,000 people at once, and it would last for 20 years. It was shorter than the Nightmare faction's 50 years. It was mainly prepared for those who had walked through the earthly realm. After all, there were countless Protoss here, and there were definitely many who had walked through the earthly realm. Under such circumstances, their factions only needed to provide resources to support them. Because of Zichen's strength, the natives were completely suppressed. The Netherworld, who had been hiding in the dark, also came out from behind the scenes. They set up a temporary base and began to recruit the God race to awaken the power of the Netherworld. Relatively speaking, this was another way out for the Protoss. After walking around the Nightmare faction, Zichen saw many people from the Kree family. They were all here to collect resources, and there were more than 100 of them. This was because a large amount of resources would be sent here every day. In the past few years, although the Kelly organization had been collecting resources at a high price, because the amount of resources they had obtained was very large, their harvest was much greater than before. It could be said that more than 80% of the world's resources had been sent to him, and the remaining 20% was the mineral veins of those forces. Many people were envious, but as long as Zichen was still in this world, they could do nothing to Carrie's forces. Therefore, they could only raise the price again and again, but the resources they received were still very little. At the same time, in order to prevent their own miners from escaping, they could only keep increasing the reward without being able to suppress them. Even so, more Protoss still escaped. This was because there was a chance to awaken power in the outer regions, but not here. As a result, their losses were even greater. During this time, many forces had to stop working because they had no more miners, so they went to the Sky Region City to discuss this matter with the Royal Forces. The Royal Force of the Soul Race was Hob. After hearing the complaints of these Soul Race forces, the representative of Hob's forces said, "Since Zichen is oppressing us so much, let's go to war." When the representatives of other forces heard this, they were all dumbfounded. After knowing how powerful Zichen was, how could they dare to go to war? Seeing the expressions of these people, the representative of Hob's forces said, "Since you don't want to go to war, what do you mean? Sir, why don't we go and negotiate? It's not just Zichen, but also Carrie's forces. This time, we have no resources to collect because of Carrie's forces," someone said. The representative of Hob's forces said indifferently, "Carrie's forces are naturally problematic, but they collect resources at double the price. How much are you paying? Now, if we attack Carrie's forces, it means attacking Zichen. Rather than that, we might as well go to war with Zichen directly. Or wait until Zichen leaves and then destroy Carrie's forces with all our strength. This was the attitude of Hobbs' forces. Their idea of asking for help was dashed. Now, they could only rely on themselves. They could understand the attitude of Hobbs' forces, which was to let Carrie's forces develop. Once Zichen left, they would attack Carrie's forces. At that time, they would be able to enjoy the resources that Carrie's forces had accumulated over the years. In the end, they would still be the ones to suffer. In desperation, they could only increase the reward. They increased it again and again until they were willing to pay double the price of Carrie's forces. However, this price was twice as high as Zichen's purchase price. Naturally, there would be forces that would waver. At this time, Nightmare's forces increased the price to 30%. As a result, although there was still a difference of 70%, some forces were still willing to trade with Nightmare's forces. This was because Nightmare's forces were allies, while the other forces were enemies. The Aboriginals were still in a passive position. However, they could not do anything because news had spread that Zichen had reached rank 3. Rank 3 was already able to leave this world. So many forces were full of expectations. If Zichen left, this world would still be their world. When Clevenly heard this news, he became extremely nervous because Zichen's breakthrough speed was too fast. It was so fast that he didn't expect it to be so fast. Because of Zichen's breakthrough, this area was shaken. The natives were secretly happy, while the Protoss forces were very worried. Was the freedom that the Protoss had just obtained going to vanish like bubbles? This worry did not last long, as news came from Nightmare's forces. Leader Zichen would not leave this area for now, and would focus on developing Nightmare's forces. When this news came out, everyone was relieved. As for the natives, naturally, they could not remain calm. Zichen had broken through to King rank 3, but his friends had not. This force had just started developing, so he could not leave. Now, he had the King of God's essence in his hands and wanted to break through to rank 4. Chapter 3078. Zichen was able to break through so quickly because of the God King's soul essence. He still had a lot of it on him, and it was enough for Tyrant and the others to break through. The heavenly beast called Patian had been in a deep slumber. During this period, he did not communicate with Zichen at all. After making a sound to this world and making it calm down again, Zichen came to his own world to look for the Queen Ant. He was already at rank 3, and his combat power had become stronger. The Queen Ant felt a strong threat from him. Everything was like what Zichen had said before. Once he broke through, the Queen Ant would become passive. It would no longer be a threat to him. Looking at Zichen, who appeared in front of it, the Queen Ant said, "You're looking for me? There's something I need to discuss with you," Zichen said. "What is it?" The Queen Ant looked at Zichen. Zichen said, "I'm still worried about this world. Before I leave, I want to leave something for them." The Queen Ant did not say anything. Obviously, the thing that Zichen wanted to leave behind was related to it. "The thing that I want to leave behind is another dark heavenly ant army." Zichen looked at the Queen Ant and said, "I know that in existence like you can not only reproduce dark heavenly ants, but also reproduce a new Queen Ant. I need a new Queen Ant." The Queen Ant's eyes flickered. Zichen continued, "When I leave this world, I'll take you with me. Therefore, you won't lose anything by leaving in Queen Ant in this world, because you won't be able to come back after leaving. As for me, I want to take advantage of the time before I leave to nurture a new Queen Ant. This way, even after we leave, with a new Queen Ant army, the natives won't dare to start a war." The Queen Ant said indifferently, "What if I don't agree?" Zichen smiled faintly and said, "I can't think of a reason why you won't agree. If you're worried that it will surpass you in the future, then what you need to do is to control it in advance." The mother nest had been using such a trick. He believed that the Queen Ant would know it too. After all, a newly born ant queen would be very weak. There was no need to force it to recognize a master. It would be fine as long as it was guided. Even if they can leave this world one day, they will still be under your control and will not pose any threat to you. Zichen said, "Leave this world and come to our world. That world is big enough. During this time, you will need to nurture more dark heavenly ants and even the ant queen. In the future, you will be the emperor among the ant queens." You will control countless dark heavenly ants, and the scale will be much larger than it is now. How can I trust you? The queen asked. You don't have a choice, do you? Zichen smiled. It was not a threat, but a fact. He couldn't guarantee that the queen ant wouldn't be able to do anything to him. This was the truth. Actually, Zichen couldn't do anything about it. The queen ant hadn't known him for a long time, so she couldn't trust him completely. After staring at each other for a long time, the queen nodded and said, Okay, I can give it to you. Zichen said, I will stay here for at most 500 years. During this time, I will do my best to nurture a new ant queen. After 500 years, we will leave this place together. The queen ant nodded again. A bug egg appeared in front of her. After the bug egg hatched, it would be a new ant queen. Zichen looked at the bug egg and said, I will leave the hatching to you. I am only responsible for nurturing the ant queen. It is also your job to control the ant queen. When the queen ant hatched a new ant queen, she would naturally be able to control it. Zichen didn't have the thought of nurturing another ant queen with independent thoughts. What he cared about was the countless dark heavenly ant army, just like the mother nest in the divine world. He didn't care about finding other ant queens to control the one in front of him. Compared to the queen ant's vigilance towards Zichen, Zichen was very assured of the queen ant Zichen plan to stay here for another 500 years. He believed that in these 500 years, he would be able to nurture a group of divine race experts and an army of dark heavenly ants. At the same time, the Klee family would be able to develop better. As long as this family was around, with their support, the divine race wouldn't be annihilated. Zichen obtained a new ant queen and started nurturing it with all his might. Now that the nightmare force that he was in had a lot of resources, it was very easy to nurture it. The number of dark, heavenly ants around him gradually increased. At the same time, Zichen and the rest were still refining the God King's soul essence, striving to improve their strength. In the next few years, Tyrant and the rest broke through to the third grade king realm. After reaching the third grade king realm, they continued to advance to the fourth grade king realm. The two awakening altars that could accommodate thousands of people opened once every few decades. Many experts awakened. After awakening, they were no weaker than the natives of the same level. Therefore, more divine race experts who were preparing to head to the other level stayed in this world. They wanted to break through before leaving. As the years passed, Zichen's improvement wasn't small. He comprehended the second true meaning of extreme speed and integrated it into the second ancestral wing tablet. He comprehended the third true meaning of Saber Ancestor's tablet and integrated the third tablet into the blade. After that, it was the third true meaning of extreme speed. At the same time, when his real body broke through, his god's doppelganger also broke through. His doppelganger didn't comprehend the true meaning. He didn't know if it was because he had become Netherworld. However, even if he didn't comprehend the true meaning, his doppelganger's fighting power was extremely strong. Moreover, as his level increased, the power of Netherworld also became stronger. It wasn't weaker than Lightning Body at all. It had been 300 years since Zichen obtained the Ant Queen. In the past 300 years, Zichen, who had nurtured the Ant Queen with all his might, naturally had some results. Zichen brought Tyrant underground and came to a huge space. The new Ant Queen was in the space. In the 300 years, it had already grown to the second grade king realm. Around it, there were many dark heavenly ants waiting to hatch. They looked similar to a mother nest. In the distance, there were many dark heavenly ants. They could already form an army. There were first grade and second grade kings. Today, Zichen brought Tyrant here to familiarize himself with these dark heavenly ants. After he left, the dark heavenly ants that were left here would need a reliable person to control them. That person was Tyrant. After everything was stable, Tyrant would bring these dark heavenly ants and leave. Looking at these dark heavenly ants, Tyrant knew what kind of situation he would face in the future. He nodded with a solemn expression. Zichen patted Tyrant's shoulder and said, "Don't worry. We still have 200 years before we leave." Tyrant said stubbornly, "Am I someone who will worry? Lord Zong is just too excited. He can finally control an army. Next, he can destroy whoever he wants." Zichen smiled and didn't expose him. Very soon, another 100 years passed. There was only 100 years left before they left. On this day, Zichan, who was in the middle of cultivating, suddenly surged with light. Lightning body activated automatically as though it had met its natural enemy. Chapter 3079. At the edge of this world, ninth-grade divine generals would often come here from the divine king's path of heaven. During this time, some natives would appear to welcome the few disciples of their clans. In the past, they could be dismissive of the divine race who came here. They could be arrogant and ridicule them. However, in the past few hundred years, they didn't even have minors. Their attitude toward the divine race had changed drastically. The ninth-grade divine generals they had looked down on were now people they could recruit. They wanted to trick the divine generals who came here for the first time to mine for their clans. In the past, they had looked down on ninth-grade divine generals. At the very least, they wanted Wang Yiping. Now, they just needed people. It was a kind of helplessness. Don't believe their nonsense. The divine race in this world now follows Lord Zichan. Lord Zichan won't exploit us. He'll even give us a chance to awaken great powers. A divine king in the distance reminded them. He was a divine king who had awakened his powers. Now that there was no exploitation in this world, all the factions wanted to find more miners to obtain more opportunities. Therefore, the competition between the divine race was fierce. Who would share their resources with the natives? It could be said that in this area, other than Lord Zichan's nightmare faction, all the other factions were constantly recruiting. The more, the better. Langdon, how dare you? An angry roar came from afar. One of the natives stared coldly at the divine king who spoke. The second-grade divine king smiled faintly at the natives. What, do you want to fight me? Come, let's see if we, who have awakened our powers, are weaker than you guys. Speaking of which, you're really shameless. You're worried that we'll become stronger, so you destroyed all the awakening altars and prevented us from awakening our powers. If Lord Zichan hadn't come here, how much longer would we have been exploited by you? These words naturally resonated. The divine kings who had come here to recruit people, and the oppression they had done to the natives was still vivid in their minds. For a time, wave after wave of powerful auras came from several other directions. The divine kings who came here to recruit had all awakened their powers. When the divine race released their auras, the natives in the distance also released their auras. The god king named Langdon said disdainfully, "What? Are you going to start a war? Even if I lent you tens or hundreds of guts, would you dare? But if you attack us, Lord Zichan will definitely annihilate your family." The natives' faces were grim, but as Langdon had said, they did not dare to make a move. You said that Zichan is very strong? A voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. A few people walked over. The one who spoke was a black-robed man. He was actually a god king. This surprised Langdon, because very few god kings came here. He remembered that when Lord Zichan and the others had arrived, they were only god kings. Lord Zichan is the hero of our world. A hint of admiration flashed in Langdon's eyes as he said, "If it weren't for Lord Zichan, we would still be suppressed by these natives and would never be able to raise our heads. And they definitely wouldn't treat us as humans. Now, everything is different. We've stood up, and we're no longer afraid of the natives." The black-robed man nodded. Langdon continued, "Join our faction. We're very close to Lord Zichan's nightmare faction. If you're lucky, you might even be able to see Lord Zichan." The black-robed man's gaze swept across the crowd. He saw the fanatical eyes of the natives, and then he looked at the natives, who had ugly expressions and were extremely depressed. A cold smile appeared on his face as he said, "If that's the case, I'll join your faction." The black-robed man looked at the natives who had spoken. What? The natives were stunned, as if they could not believe it. "We'll join your faction," the black-robed man said. "Hey, did you make a mistake? We won't be oppressed if we follow Lord Zichan," Langdon said. "Lord Zichan?" The black-robed man's lips flashed with disdain. "In my eyes, he's not worthy of being a lord." "Impudent!" Langdon shouted angrily, releasing a powerful aura. "Don't provoke me, or you'll die." The black-robed man's eyes flashed coldly, and rays of black light appeared around him, releasing a powerful aura. Langdon's expression changed instantly, because he felt the threat of death from the black-robed man. Wang Yiping, who had just arrived here, was a threat to an awakened Wang Yiping? How was this possible? However, this sort of situation was not without precedent. It was said that Lord Zichun had been this powerful in the past. This black-robed man did not take Lord Zichun seriously. Could he be in existence on par with Lord Zichun? And judging from his expression and tone, did he know Lord Zichun? There was a hint of delight in the native's eyes. If they could really meet a powerhouse comparable to Zichun, it would naturally be a good thing for their family. At this moment, a light suddenly appeared. Two people appeared in the light. One was Zichun, and the other was Su Mingyao. "Greetings, my lord." The awakened Protoss around them had seen Zichun before, so they all bowed. The black-robed man's pupils shrank, and then a look of disdain appeared on his face. "You've become a lord." Beside the black-robed man, the other people's expressions also changed. Zichun looked at them and smiled. "We're really fated." The people in front of him were none other than Ji Wei and the others. They were the people who had caused a lot of trouble in the divine realm. "What do you want?" Ben Senlu stared at Zichun and said indifferently. The others were extremely shocked. They did not expect Lord Zichun to know these people. However, looking at their nervous expressions, even if they knew each other, they were not friendly. "It's been a long time since we last met. I'm very happy to see you, and I want to talk to you about what happened back then." Zichun smiled mockingly. "You want to kill me?" Ben Senlu said coldly. "What do you think?" Zichun looked at him. "You dare to kill me?" Ben Senlu said again. Zichun laughed mockingly. "Are you bluffing? Do you think it will be difficult for me to kill you?" Among these people, except for Ji Wei and Wang Yiping, the others were all 9th grade divine generals. For Zichun, killing them was too easy, even if they had special life-saving items given to them by the divine realm. Ji Wei's expression was still disdainful. He said coldly, "You're still so boring. Why don't I see Yiqian?" Hearing the name Yiqian, Xian Lin bit her red lips, and her expression fluctuated greatly. Zichun did not answer Ji Wei's question. Instead, he looked at him and said, "Why is the scar on your face gone? I remember you said that it was a scar that represented your hatred." "How childish." Ji Wei snorted coldly. Zichun said, "I also think you were childish back then. What? You want to fight me?" Chapter 3080. While Zichun had been cultivating, his lightning body had sensed the aura of that self-proclaimed natural enemy, so he had come here to take a look. He hadn't expected to run into Yue. Seeing Yue's calm expression, it was clear that he was better at controlling the fleeing black energy than Yushiyu. Zichun was silent. "You won't attack me, so what are you still standing here for?" Yue said to Zichun. As an enemy, Yue naturally understood Zichun, perhaps even better than the others who knew Zichun. Even though he knew that the two of them were going to fight, he was currently only Wang Yiping. But what was Zichun's cultivation level? Thus, under these circumstances, Zichun definitely wouldn't attack. This wasn't because he was afraid of losing face, but because his personality dictated it. After discovering that this person was Yue, Zichun was very surprised, but he truly didn't want to fight him, even if they were all enemies. They were too weak, and Zichun needed them. Originally, he didn't know how to arrange everything after he left, but now, it seemed that he had a plan. He said, "This isn't the place to talk. Come with me." "Follow you? Why should we?" Ben Senlu said. Sina and the others had cold expressions. If they followed Zichun, this enemy, they might be killed on the way. They weren't so careless. Yue said, "We've already decided to join his faction." His faction. Yue pointed at the indigenous person. Zichun turned to glance at the indigenous person. The latter's expression was extremely unsightly, but he didn't dare say anything. Zichun smiled and said, "Are you sure?" Yue said, "Of course." He spoke in a matter-of-fact tone, but his expression wavered. Clearly, he had been swayed by Zichun's words. "Let's go. You're still very unfamiliar with this world," Zichun said calmly, then turned and walked away. Yue hesitated for a moment, then followed. The indigenous person felt that this was a great pity. Yue was the strongest member of their group. If even he left, Sina and the others had no reason to stay. The group of people followed Zichun towards the Nightmare faction. How's the situation in the God world? Zichun asked as they advanced. It's a mess, Chiwei said. This was clearly not the answer that Zichun wanted. Wagway continued. The situation has changed greatly. If we can't go with the flow, we will be destroyed. Although your forces are far from the battlefield and there are many space-time creatures in between, in this great chaos, you should not be able to hold on. Zichun looked at Rocky. Rocky smiled faintly and said, I only have one city. If it's destroyed, I'll just build another one. Zichun looked at Sina and the others, only to receive a cold glare in return. Without the heavenly gods, it looked like the children of heavenly gods weren't doing too well. Although it looked like they were here to train, it was more likely that they were here to avoid the great upheaval of the god realm. This was something that Zichun had thought about for a long time before he finally understood. Without a single god king among them, they would definitely face a purge. As the saying goes, those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. Moreover, in a situation where the heavenly gods might not return, how many of their trusted subordinates were still loyal? Without strength or influence, the children of heavenly gods were no longer safe in the god realm. Zichun brought Chiwei back to the Nightmare faction. Tyrant and the others naturally recognized Chiwei, and when they saw him, they were very surprised. However, they didn't have any thoughts of enmity. In fact, from a certain point of view, they even felt a trace of closeness. After all, they were once familiar with each other, even if they were enemies. It could even be said that they were a group of lovable enemies. In the past, the development and strength of the Nightmare faction could not be avoided without their contributions. This is your faction? And here I thought it was much bigger, Chiwei said mockingly. Zichun smiled and didn't deliberately explain. He directly brought them into the main hall. During this time, they saw Ichien. Aside from Xi and Lin, whose expression had changed greatly, the others were calm. This was because they had always been targeting Zichun. As for Ichien, the goddess, they didn't deliberately target her. Xi and Lin was also aware of her current situation, so no matter how arrogant she was usually, she didn't use harsh words to bully Ichien today. To be honest, Ichien was her elder sister. They came to the main hall, and after they took their seats, Zichun said, Since you have just arrived here, let me introduce the structure of this world to you. This was originally the training ground of the god race. All the god race who came here could rely on the awakening altar to awaken their rule power and enhance their combat strength. The original inhabitants were responsible for guarding these altars and providing us with resources. But in the end, they betrayed us and destroyed all the awakening altars. Hearing Zichun's words, their expressions changed. Zichun continued, Without the awakening altar, the god race was so weak that they couldn't even kill a heavenly beast of the same level. At the same time, a third-grade king could barely deal with an original inhabitant of Wang Yiping's level. The comparison of levels made everyone feel more realistic, and their expressions changed even more. This situation continued until we arrived, and only then did it improve. When we were in danger of being surrounded, Ichien summoned the awakening altar, and we were able to enter the altar to escape and awaken our powers. Everyone looked at Ichien, puzzled. Zichun looked at Sina and the others and said, I believe you guys can also summon the awakening altar. Yahweh reacted and immediately said, You mean, God left a backup plan, and the Son of God can summon the hidden awakening altar? Zichun nodded. Yahweh was as smart as ever. Zichun said, That's right. The Son of God can summon the altar and own it. But the altar can only awaken the god race's rule power, which is comparable to the original inhabitants of the same level. But the original inhabitants have controlled this world for many years, and the scale of their development is unimaginable. During this period, they will think of ways to destroy the altar. Once they destroy it, they will lose everything. For Zichun to be able to restrain the aboriginals under such circumstances, he must have other means besides his own strength. Zichun continued, If you join the original inhabitants today, what awaits you is death. Yahweh said, If that's the case, why don't you destroy the original inhabitants? The original inhabitants can condense the supreme crystal, which is necessary for our growth. So, the god race and the original inhabitants live in symbiosis. In the past, the god race who couldn't awaken their rule power were miners at the lowest level. The original inhabitants also need such labor to extract resources. Galway said, "Then what do you want?" Chapter 3081. After Zichun finished speaking, Yinwei frowned. Sina and the others were even more displeased. Who were they? They were the sons of God. How could they become Zichin's subordinates? Moreover, they were his enemies. It was already good enough that they were not jealous of him. They could not become Zichin's subordinates. Looking at their ugly expressions, Zichun smiled faintly and said, "You don't have a choice. Without my protection, you will only die if you go out." Most importantly, the news that the sons of God can summon the awakening altar has already spread. So, if you leave, you will be hunted down by all the factions. There is already a nightmare faction in this world. They will not allow a second nightmare faction to appear. Seeing that their expressions were still ugly, Zichun continued, "Furthermore, you have already lost everything, don't you?" Benson Liu said unhappily, "Who are you saying has nothing left?" Zichun said, "If you have, why are you here?" Benson Liu said angrily, "It's all because of you." He had enough reason to be angry. After all, the reason he had fallen to this point was mainly because of Zichun. Back then, he had suffered too great a loss with Zichun. After his godfather left, he was suppressed by other factions. Similarly, the others were not much different. Perhaps they still had some factions, but they could not guarantee that they would survive or develop well in the great upheaval. Thus, they had come here. Seeing them fall silent, Zichun said, "Right now, this world has not been touched by others. If you contribute the awakening altar, I will protect you and help you grow. When you are independent, I will allow you to establish your own factions." "You are so kind?" Yenwei looked at Zichun. "I am not being kind. I just don't want the god race to continue to be suppressed after we leave. Moreover, if we can gather them together, it will be a good thing for us." Zichun said, "You want to leave this place?" Yenwei frowned. "This world is not just a single level. There are other levels. After reaching the third-grade king level, it will be very difficult to continue to grow. Those indigenous forces only treated rank 4 as their foundation. Once a rank 4 fought, they would expend a lot of energy. However, due to the suppression of rules, their recovery would be very slow. Therefore, under normal circumstances, after reaching rank 3, they will leave this place." Zichun looked at them and explained, "But we're not leaving yet. According to the original plan, we still have 100 years. After 100 years, we will leave, but we will leave someone behind to continue to guard this place. Now that I've met you, we can work together." Xavier, who had been silent all this time, said, "We are enemies. Why should we work together?" Zichun said, "We are enemies in the God realm, but not here. When you understand the situation here, you will understand what kind of situation the Protoss are in." Yang Wei looked at the others. After all, this was related to the awakening altars of the sons of gods. He couldn't make the decision for them. "We need to think about it." Seeing that no one had expressed their opinion, Wagway said, "That's fine." Zichun nodded and said, "I'll leave this place for you to think about. If you agree, then we'll have to discuss our next move." Then, Zichun and the others left the hall. Wagway, Ben Senlu, Xian Lin, Xavier, and Sina stayed behind. "Why did you bring them here?" After Zichun walked out of the hall, Monk came up and asked. He wasn't worried that Wagway and the others could hear him. "With them here, the Protoss will have more chances to awaken," Zichun said. Monk snorted and said, "Killing them is the best choice. Isn't it better to leave this place for us to develop?" This time, before Zichun could speak, Su Mingyao said, "We have too few awakening altars. There are too many Protoss here. We can't recruit all of them. Rather than that, why don't we work together and give the other Protoss a chance?" Monk was just complaining. He understood the logic. Now, the 2 awakening altars had reached the limit of the number of people they could hold, but there were still countless people waiting. They had already reached the standard set by Su Mingyao. Zichun said, "There are 4 of them, so there are 4 altars. We'll leave 2 for us and 2 for the other factions." They all nodded. Although Wagway and the others hadn't agreed yet, they believed that they would eventually agree. Zichun and the others left. The five of them were still silent. After a while, Wagway said, "What do you think?" Ben Senlu snorted and said, "That Zichun isn't even the adopted son of a god. What right does he have to enslave us?" "That's right. Back then, he was defeated by me," Sina said. "I was the one who almost killed him in Thunder God Temple." Wagway smiled and didn't say anything. "It was all in the past," Xavier said. "Back then, he stole something from me. That was when Zichun was still a skeleton. In a city, Zichun almost killed Xavier and stole his resources." Xian Lin suddenly had the urge to laugh when she saw the unwillingness on their faces. Even though she didn't get any benefits from Zichun, she couldn't do anything about it. Actually, she was different from the others. These people didn't dare to confront Yiqian, so they deliberately targeted Zichun. But she wasn't. She had always targeted Yiqian and Zichun. After a few words of complaint, they looked at each other and fell silent again. Seeing everyone fall silent again, Wagway said, "Then it's settled. We'll stay in Zichun's faction for now. Once we have the ability to establish our own faction, we'll leave." "Humph. If Zichun dares to order me to do anything, I definitely won't forgive him." Ben Senlu snorted. "Me too," Sina said coldly. And so, this matter was decided. After Zichun returned to the hall, he looked at everyone with a smile and said, "Have you all made your choice?" They nodded unwillingly. Wagway said, "It's still the same. We're only joining temporarily." "Don't worry, I'm not you. I'll keep my word," Zichun said with a smile. "Don't think about ordering us around. We're only cooperating with you. We're not really your subordinates. You need to be clear about this," Ben Senlu said. Zichun said with a smile, "Of course I know. Don't worry, we're only cooperating. We definitely won't order you around. Now, you and Sina will go outside and summon the awakening altar. Mengyao will tell you where to place the altar." They just said they wouldn't order him around, and now he was ordering them around. The two glared at each other with dissatisfaction. Zichun continued, "Don't get too close to the altar. It's not good." The two's faces darkened. They coldly snorted and walked outside. "Goddess, you should go too. Leave the altar that you and the godchild summoned for the Nightmare faction." Zichun looked at Xian Lin and said with a friendly attitude. Xian Lin nodded. After all, she was living under someone else's roof, and there was no problem with Zichun's attitude. Chapter 3082. After Ben Senlu and Sina came out, they followed Su Mengyao's instructions and began to summon the awakening altars. These two awakening altars were open to the public. Yiqian arranged for Xian Lin and Xavier to come out as well. As they released their auras, they sensed the location of the awakening altars. As their thoughts descended, the awakening altars appeared in the air. The appearance of 4 altars shocked the god kings of the Nightmare faction. The 4 sons of God were also stunned. Although they had expected this, they were still shocked when they saw the awakening altars. Next, the Nightmare faction burst into cheers. With 4 more awakening altars, everyone's chances had increased greatly. On the same day, the 4 sons of God negotiated with Su Mengyao and Yiqian and went to their awakening altars. After confirming the exact coordinates of the 4 awakening altars, Yiqian and Su Mengyao arranged for the other god kings to enter. Hearing the cheers all around, Ji Wei's expression became complicated. Zichun glanced at him and said, "You can go take a look around and get to know this place better. The power you obtained last time was a bit strange. You should be careful." Ji Wei looked at Zichun in surprise. Zichun said, "Don't misunderstand. I'm not worried about you. The one who obtained your power last time is already dead. He died at my hands, but that power ran away. I don't want that power to run away again after killing you. That way, there will never be enough enemies to kill." Ji Wei snorted and said, "You don't need to worry." He turned around and walked into the distance. As Wang Yiping, he wanted to have a better understanding of this world. When the news spread, all of the God Race factions were in an uproar. With 4 more awakening altars, the number of openings had increased greatly. Everyone's chances of getting a chance had also increased. When the Klee faction heard the news, they were also very happy. They were the only native faction that was happy for Zichan. The other factions were filled with worry. However, as long as Zichan did not leave this world, they would never dare to attack the Protoss, and the suppression would always exist. This made them extremely depressed. All of them wanted Zichan to leave quickly so that they could attack with all their might and destroy the celestial race and regain their control. After a few days, Kwei returned. During this time, he had gained a deeper understanding of this world. He had seen the celestial races from other forces and the heavenly beasts here. Both sides had also fought before. After returning, he immediately went to awaken his power. What do you plan to do? In the hall, Su Mengyao looks at the worried Zichan. Zichan slowly shook his head and said, I haven't thought about it yet. In short, we must not give up on the Shen clan here. After hearing what Yanwei said, he knew that the situation in the God world had become more dangerous, so he wanted to go back and take a look. However, it was impossible for the Protoss here to give up so easily. That was because once they returned to the divine realm, they would erupt with their most powerful battle prowess. They could completely sweep away the other divine kings of the divine realm. Because they had awakened their power, those divine kings of the divine realm should not have. But now, how to smoothly bring them out of this world was a huge problem. Because he did not know much about the next level. You can ask the Carry faction. Maybe they know something, Su Mengyao said. Zichan nodded. It seemed that this was the only way. He went directly to the Carry faction. At the same time, it was also his first time going to a city in this world, even though it was under the control of the Carry faction. The city was very lively. There were natives everywhere. There was no trace of the Shen clan at all. Zichan's arrival made the aborigines along the way very surprised. Soon, the Carry family members received the news. Then, Clevenly personally appeared. When he saw Zichan, he was very surprised. I didn't expect the city to be so lively. Zichan looked at the lively crowd and said, There are many natives, but not all of them can awaken their power. Those who can't will stay here and work. Clevenly said, Sir, how come you have time to come here today? I want to ask you, do you know anything about the situation of the other world? Zichan did not beat around the bush and asked directly, The other world? Clevenly was stunned. In about 100 years, I will leave here, Zichan said. Although Clevenly knew this day would come, he was still surprised when he heard it. We know almost nothing about the other world, but I believe it's the same as here. Usually, if we want to send a message to the higher-ups, we can only send a rank 3, and the person who sends the message can never come back. Clevenly brought Zichan to his family's restaurant. The business here was quite good. In the past few hundred years, the Carey family had developed very well. During this period, they had also gained the support of many small factions, so the city was very lively. There had even been a private rumor that the Carey faction could become a royal faction in the future. Since the two sides can't communicate, why do you still send a message to the higher-ups? Zichan asked, puzzled. This involves personal grievances. For example, if you are suppressed by a faction, you will send a message. Perhaps that faction is weaker, so they will be suppressed. Of course, we don't know the specifics. Clevenly said, I believe the faction on the other level already knows about your situation. So when you reach the next level, you must be careful. They may deliberately look for you and then kill you. After all, in the other world, rank 4 is just the beginning. There will be stronger people. Zichan did not get the information he wanted, so Clevenly treated him to a meal. Naturally, it was the best meal in the city. Before you leave, have you thought about what to do? Clevenly asked at last. I haven't thought about it yet, but this matter will definitely be resolved. With Zichan's words, Clevenly was relieved. This time, whether the Carey family could take advantage of the situation and rise up would depend on what Zichan did when he left. Zichan returned to the Nightmare faction. Su Mengyao told him that the spirit-devouring king grass had returned. Zichan nodded. In the past few hundred years, he had not been cultivating all the time. Every time the spirit-devouring king grass returned, he would go out with it for a while. During this time, he mainly searched for the godly king's soul essences. During this time, Zichan discovered a few large mineral veins. 2 of them were occupied by the Nightmare faction, and 1 was transferred to another faction by Zichan. However, The Nightmare faction also had a share of the resources mined. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years passed. Chapter 3083. After Yanwei broke through, Zichun had not returned yet. Therefore, he followed the hunting team and went out to hunt heavenly beasts to familiarize himself with this world. Before he left, Su Mingyao gave him some supreme crystal for him to refine and grow. He successfully used this awakening to reach rank 2 king. As the team went out, he listened to everyone's discussions and gained a deeper understanding of this world. Looking at the smiles on their faces, Yanwei felt how difficult it was to achieve all this. Moreover, this situation could not last long. The natives were like tigers and wolves, eyeing them covetously from the side. They could destroy everything the God Clan had now. This was also the main reason why Zichun had not left yet. Although he disdained Zichun's way of doing things, he still admired him a little. At the same time, Yanwei felt lucky. If they had not met Zichun, even if they summoned the awakening altar, they might not have been able to protect them. The situation here was more dangerous than he had imagined. Bang! Energy vibrated, smoke and dust flew everywhere, and countless gravel whistled like hidden weapons. Zichun's figure appeared. Above his head, the spirit-devouring king grass was floating. Looking at the mineral vein below, Zichun shot out a beam of energy. After marking it, he went to the second mineral vein. All these years, the spirit-devouring king grass would automatically devour the God King's soul essences in the mineral vein after discovering them. Its realm had already reached rank 3, and it had grown 3 leaves. However, if there were more than 3 God King's soul essences in the mineral vein, it would not be able to devour them and would need Zichun to do it. Therefore, every mineral vein it discovered was not small. All these years, Zichun had obtained many God King's soul essences. After collecting all the God King's soul essences that the spirit-devouring king grass could not devour, Zichun was ready to go to the Underworld organization. Speaking of which, it had been many years since he had seen Lord Underworld. Unlike before, the current Underworld organization had come out from the dark. All of this was naturally related to the rise of the Nightmare organization. The natives could tolerate the existence of the Nightmare organization, so they would not attack the Underworld organization. They were worried that Zichun would come knocking on their door. After arriving at the Underworld faction's encampment, everyone immediately recognized Zichun, and the scene from the first time would not repeat itself. Under the guidance of a second-rank king, Zichun met the leader of the Netherworld race in the encampment. The man looked at Zichun and said with emotion, "Sure enough, every time I see you, you always bring surprises. Looking at your achievements, even this old man feels ashamed of his inferiority." The Netherworld chief was referring to Zichun's cultivation level. Although the current Zichun did not deliberately release his aura, the Nether chief was in existence at a very high realm. Naturally, he could sense Zichun's true realm. Zichun had only been in this world for a few hundred years, but he had already reached the 4th grade king realm. "I'm here to ask if you're planning to leave this world," said Zichun. The leader of the Netherworld race asked, "Are you ready to leave?" "Prepare to leave in a few decades," Zichun said. "If you leave, this world will no longer be stable, and we might have to go from light to darkness again," said the leader of the Netherworld race. Zichun smiled faintly, knowing that the other party was teasing him. "Hence," he said, "are you not going to leave?" The leader of the Netherworld race sighed and said, "I don't have such plans for now. As you can see, I haven't found a successor yet. Once I leave, there will definitely be chaos in the Netherworld." After thinking for a while, Zichun said, "If you don't leave for now, I hope you can lend a hand when the Nightmare faction faces problems." "Zichun, you're being too modest. Who doesn't know that your Nightmare faction is the strongest and can suppress all the natives?" said the leader of the Netherworld race with a smile. Although he was joking, the leader of the Netherworld race still promised that if he needed his help, he would definitely lend a hand. Zichun asked some questions about the other layer of the Divine King realm, but the leader of the Netherworld race expressed that he was not clear about it. At this moment, in Zichun's world, the Divine Clone was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. However, he was not as calm as before. His emotions seemed to be restless. When he opened his eyes and was about to end his cultivation, he saw a pair of eyes staring at him. This gave him a fright, and his body subconsciously moved backward. It was the powerful heavenly beast called Heavenbreaker. He had always been in a deep slumber. Unexpectedly, he had woken up this time. Moreover, he was staring at him from so close, but he did not notice him at all. "You are the Netherworld?" Heavenbreaker suddenly asked. "What Netherworld?" asked the divine clone. "You have the power of the Netherworld. If it's not the Netherworld, then what is it?" Heavenbreaker said. "However, why are you so weak?" The divine clone said, "I don't know what you are talking about. I obtained this power by accident." Heavenbreaker walked in front of the divine clone and said, "Oh, tell me, how did you obtain the power of the Netherworld?" Although the divine clone shared the same soul as Zichun, their consciousnesses were separate. Normally, they would not use each other. Thus, the divine clone did not know how he obtained the power of the Netherworld. He could only tell the details of what he saw. Although Heavenbreaker's origins were unknown, he should not have any evil intentions toward the divine clone. Thus, the divine clone did not hide anything. After explaining everything, the divine clone said, "That's how it is." At that time, the divine clone was unable to refine the power of the Netherworld, and we needed battle power. Although I felt that this power was strange, I still used it. Thus, it became like this. Heavenbreaker's lips curled up in disdain. He said, "It's not just strange. It's very strange." "What do you mean?" asked the divine clone. Heavenbreaker said, "You won't understand even if I tell you. Now, do you feel that something is not quite right?" The divine clone nodded and said, "Yes, I feel that the power is somewhat irritable, and my emotions are not very stable. How should I say it? I feel like I want to kill someone." "Then hurry up and leave. Why are you still standing here like an idiot? Are you waiting to die?" said Heavenbreaker. The divine clone felt that this was not a small matter. Thus, he immediately transmitted his voice to the divine clone. At this moment, Zichun had also finished discussing some matters with the Netherworld chief. He said, "Since it's like that, I'll take my leave." The Netherworld chief nodded. Then, he said with a hint of pity, "Your divine clone is very extraordinary. It's a pity that you're going to leave. Otherwise, I would be very relieved to hand over everything here to him." Zichun smiled and said, "If my divine clone knew about this, he would definitely be very happy. However, he's been in seclusion recently, so I'm afraid he won't be able to thank you in person." Zichun left the Netherworld Organization's base. Then, he chose to teleport away and headed toward the Nightmare Organization. After leaving this area, his figure flashed and entered his world. The divine clone said, "Master Heavenbreaker told me that there's a problem with the power of the Netherworld." Zichun looked toward the awakened Heavenbreaker. "Before you have the power, you should avoid this place. Otherwise, you'll be devoured by the Netherworld," Heavenbreaker said in an indifferent voice. "Master, do you know what's going on?" Zichun asked in confusion. Heavenbreaker said, "The Netherworld has always been very powerful. However, something has happened to it. He was able to obtain the power of the Netherworld. Perhaps the Netherworld wants to use him to be reborn." Chapter 3084. Back at the encampment, Zichun told Tyrant to be careful of the Netherworld leaders after they left this place. If both sides could avoid contact, it was best not to. Zichun was puzzled as to why this lord was unwilling to leave. Initially, he guessed that this lord wanted to bring along a group of powerful Netherworld leaders like the Ant Queen. Now that he heard Heavenbreaker's words, this might not be the case. "Yue has already broken through," Tyrant said. Zichun wasn't surprised. Yue's talent wasn't low, and he had once walked the path of the Earth Realm. It was normal for him to be able to break through in such a short time. Tyrant said, "You promised them that when they have the ability, they will be able to set up their own factions. When that time comes, it will be very disadvantageous for us." Yue had a total of 4 awakening altars while Zichun only had 2. Once both sides started to compete, it would naturally be disadvantageous for them. Zichun was clear about this. However, there was still a long time. During this period of time, the Nightmare faction should be able to nurture many awakened God Kings. "It's okay. There are many gods here. Don't worry," Zichun said. Will Yue collude with the natives after you leave to go against us? Tyrant asked again. After all, it hadn't been long since Zichen left. Under such circumstances, Tyrant had to consider all possibilities. I don't think so. We are all passers-by here. The real enemy is outside. I believe that in this place, we will not go against each other. On this day, Tyrant asked many questions. They were all about things that might happen in the future. Of course, they might never happen. For example, what would happen if more children of gods came? Zichen's answer was to give them protection first. Just like Yue and the others, he could let them leave on their own when they had the ability. Because this world was too big and there were too many gods, even if dozens of children of gods came, it would still be able to accommodate them. Zichen already had the dark heavenly ant army. Compared to the gods, they were more convenient and could grow faster. Now that everyone had left, Zichen wouldn't feel regretful. All the arrangements that followed were actually for the sake of the gods here. In the last period of time, Zichen brought the soul-devouring kinggrass to sweep through this area and obtained more god-king soul essences. Another few decades later, it was time to leave. Roy, Martin, Li Ai, Lunk, Zhang Haoyin, Tyrant, and Longhu continued to stay here while Zichen left with the others. Other than these people on the surface, the new Ant Queen had also secretly nurtured an army of darkness heavenly ants. This was the true backup that Zichen had left behind in this world. There's a show to watch. Let's go watch the show first. The monk chuckled out as his eyes were filled with reluctance. Zichen and the others headed towards the world where the natives lived. They followed the crowd with great momentum. This time, he wasn't going to the second level. Like Tyrant and the others, he wanted to see the city of the Aborigines and see what Zichen was going to do next. At the same time, there were many divines following behind. They all knew what their leader Zichen was going to do, and they were all very excited. Every move of the Nightmare faction had been sensed by the natives over the years, so when Zichen moved today, there were countless spirit eagles moving above his head. Ji Wei looked up at the spirit eagle above his head and said, "Don't you find it annoying? Why don't you take them down?" "I can't take them down, so I can save some energy," said Zichen. "Are you confident?" Ji Wei asked again. It had been 100 years since he came to this world. Naturally, he knew enough about this world and its history, as well as Zichen's strength and backup plan. Although those darkness heavenly ants were indeed terrifying, what he was going to face this time was the natives who had developed for countless years. Moreover, it wasn't just a family, but all the natives. Under such circumstances, other than Carrie's faction supporting him, it was impossible for the other factions to support him. They might even gang up on him. Therefore, Ji Wei felt the pressure. Everything was as Zichen said. In this world, they weren't enemies. Instead, they had a common enemy. To put it bluntly, they were all homeless and pitiful people who were in the same boat. We have to go even if we're not confident. After all, this concerns the fate of all the divines, said Zichen in a deep voice. The aura of a rank 4 martial artist came from afar. The Nether Chief also appeared, but he didn't come forward. He just followed from afar. When Zichen looked over, he nodded at Zichen. Behind Zichen's group, more divines appeared. They already knew what Zichen was going to do. At the same time that they were excited, they were also touched by what they saw. A city appeared in front of them. There were many natives standing outside the city. They were also very excited. The leader was Cliven, and in front of him stood an old man. The old man was a rank 4 martial artist. Seeing the arrival of Zichen's group, Carrie said, "Chief Zichen, we're ready." Zichen looked at the natives behind Carrie, shook his head slowly, and said, "There's no need for that. Just one person is enough to lead the way." "I'll go," Clevenly said. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Patriarch." Zichen bowed. Carrie walked over. He found it hard to calm down. It hadn't been easy for the Carey family to develop to this point, but it would be very difficult to take another step forward. However, there was an opportunity right now. Whether or not they could become a dragon would depend on today. Of course, they might be destroyed. Cly Brunei was both excited and nervous. "Where do we go first?" asked Carrie. "The closest one," said Zichen. "That's the Meek family. Let's go." Under Carrie's lead, Zichen walked towards the Meek family. The spiritual eagle in the sky immediately spread the news. All the native forces in the world were watching Zichun. The Meek family was not a small family. When Zichun had first arrived in this world, he had come into contact with the Meek family. He remembered that person was called Mycelian. At that time, Mycelian had been very arrogant. He viewed all the Protoss men as slaves and the women as tools for reproduction. In the blink of an eye, a few hundred years had passed. After the previous crisis, the Meek family had once again encountered trouble. Patriarch Meek looked at the spiritual eagle's message, and his expression became very ugly. Through the spiritual eagle's vision, he saw that Zichun was getting closer and closer to the Meek family. The one leading the way was Chris Brunei. Damn you, Carrie. As long as we avoid this disaster, your Carrie family will definitely be destroyed. As Patriarch Meek cursed, Zichun once again arrived outside the Meek family's city. He leapt into the air and shouted at the city ahead. Rank 4, come out. Chapter 3085. Zichun's voice reverberated in the air, reaching the city under the control of the Meek clan. When the residents heard this voice, their expressions changed. Daring to challenge a rank 4, this person was obviously very powerful. Seeing the person in the air, the Meek clan guards on the city walls were clearly terrified. The scene from last time was still vivid in their minds. Countless dark, heavenly ants had broken through the Great Barrier and appeared in the city. It was too terrifying. The voice spread into the city, causing chaos. The Meek clan master had no choice but to appear. Zichun, what is the meaning of this? He arrived on the city walls and shouted at Zichun in the air. Monk and the others stood in the distance, not approaching. Tell your rank 4 to come out. Otherwise, the Meek clan will be destroyed today, Zichun said coldly. You've gone too far. The Meek clan master said angrily. My patience is limited. Zichun's attitude was irresistible. His eyes flashed coldly. What business do you have with this old man? An old voice came from the Meek clan residence. An old man appeared out of thin air. This clan no longer needs you. Either you leave this place and enter the next level, or you fight me to the death. Zichun said in a low voice. This was his goal. He didn't need to kill all of the rank 4 kings. He only needed to ensure that there were no more rank 4 enemies in this world. The rank 4 king from the Meek clan said in a low voice, You want to destroy us? If I only wanted to destroy you, would I need to drive you away? Zichun looked at him mockingly. Wouldn't it be better if I destroyed you as well? The rank 4 king from the Meek clan was clearly enraged, but he had seen Zichun's battles before. He knew that if he got angry, his clan would be destroyed. Fine. He nodded and left. Seeing this rank 4 king leave, Zichun turned and left. He didn't attack the Meek clan. While the natives of the Meek clan sighed in relief, their hearts were also filled with sorrow. From today onwards, the Meek clan no longer had a rank 4. But that wasn't absolute. What if he couldn't win? Patriarch Meek still held on to one last hope. After the rank 4s from the Meek clan left, the other forces understood Zichun's intentions. Hence, there was an uproar. Clearly, he wanted to chase all the rank 4s to another level. That way, without rank 4 combat strength, they would not be a threat to the Protoss. The most important thing was that the Carrie faction would rise, and they would stand on the side of the divine race. Zichun was led by the patriarch of the Kelly family to the second family. This family was the Duke faction. Arriving outside the Duke faction, Zichun shouted the same cold words. Zichun, you're mistaken. Our Duke faction doesn't have a rank 4. The Duke faction's patriarch smiled bitterly. Zichun turned around to look at the head of the Klee family. The latter shook his head and said, I've never heard of it, but no one knows if it's true or not. Zichun looked at the family head of the Duke faction and said indifferently, If you let the rank 4 appear and leave now, I will treat it as if nothing happened. On the other hand, I think you've given up on rank 4. I really didn't. The Duke faction's patriarch smiled bitterly again. Zichun said coldly, All right then, I'll treat it as you giving up on rank 4. After saying that, he flew towards the city. Naturally, no one dared to use the light shield to stop him. The moment Zichun rushed into the city, in a courtyard, there was a roar. A powerful rank 4 aura exploded. A rank 4 was caught by a leaf and flew towards the sky. Zichen, who was rushing forward, had a sheathed long saber in his hand. His eyes were cold. Zichen, stop. We were wrong. Stop now. The Duke family's patriarch shouted loudly. Buzz. The long saber was unsheathed. An arc of the saber flashed past, sweeping past the rank 4's neck. The rank 4's head flew up, and his life force disappeared. The leaves of the spirit-devouring king grass pierced into the rank 4's body, devouring the dead rank 4's energy. Zichun, what are you doing? I already said that I was wrong. Just let him leave. Why did you have to kill him? The Duke family's patriarch said angrily. Zichun looked back at him and said, I gave you a chance. Unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. You. The Duke family's patriarch said angrily, now that you've killed him, shouldn't you leave? A smile appeared on Zichen's face. He said, see, you didn't cherish your chance again. His smile was very gentle, but it gave the Duke family's patriarch a cruel feeling. It was as if he saw a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood on his face. In the next moment, he understood the meaning of Zichen's smile. His expression froze instantly. His face showed a painful expression. He knelt down in the air and shouted, spare me. Zichen stopped smiling and said, it's too late. Just treat it as if you're hitting the bird that stood out. Behind Zichen, an endless stream of dark heavenly ants fell. Then, miserable screams could be heard. This was a battle of annihilation. At the same time, in another direction, the spirit-devouring monarch grass pulled out another rank 4. This time, Zichen didn't make a move. The opponent was killed by the spirit-devouring monarch grass, which had already advanced to rank 4. In these years, Zichen could break through. Naturally, the spirit-devouring monarch grass could also break through in the process of continuously devouring the godly king's soul essences. Clevenly was shocked. Although the Duke family was somewhat famous, they weren't very powerful. All this time, it was suspected that they had rank 4 experts. However, he didn't expect that there would be 2 of them, one more than the powerful Meek family. Prepare to send people to take over this city. I'll leave the women and children behind, said Zichen. Yes, Clevenly nodded. This action showed Zichen's determination. This was only the second family. There would be many more in the future. If they were merciful this time, then there would definitely be other families who would take advantage of this loophole. As expected, the patriarchs of the other families who saw this scene through their spiritual eagles all changed their expressions. They all gave out orders one after another. Ask the rank 4 experts to head to Sky Domain City immediately. They didn't know how the spirit-devouring monarch grass found the rank 4 experts. However, they didn't dare to take the risk because the result of losing the bet would be the destruction of their families. When the dark heavenly ants really showed their power, no other forces could resist unless all the other forces joined forces. However, this was obviously impossible, and it was too late. All the rank 4 experts were forcefully transferred out of their families and headed to Sky Domain City. This was the only way to enter the next level. At the same time, the battle to stop Zichen would also erupt here. This was because, other than Clevenly's forces, all the rank 4 experts of the other forces would come here. Zichen left the Duke family. This family would be completely destroyed. Chapter 3086. The Spirit Eagle transmitted the scene of what had happened to the Duke family. This was the first time Zichen had destroyed a family since he came to this world. Even in the battle to gain a foothold, he did not destroy the Perry family. Obviously, this time, he had made his stand clear. It also proved Zichen's determination. Therefore, no other family thought of taking advantage of Zichen. It could be said that the Duke family had set an example for them. Next, they sent out all the 4th-rank warriors in the family. Although this would reveal the family's foundation, it was better than hiding and implicating the family itself. Although Zichen guessed that this would definitely deter those families, he still did not give up searching. One family after another, one city after another. In Perry's forces, the only King Grade 4 walked out after explaining some family matters. How powerful was the Perry family in the past? Unfortunately, they had suffered heavy losses in that battle. The Protoss could gain a foothold in this area because they had stepped on the Perry family. Therefore, as long as there was a chance, he would definitely kill Zichun. Elder Ancestor, aren't you going to bring your armor? The head of the Perry family asked. No need. All the fourth-rank warriors will come to Skyfield City. If there is a battle, it won't matter if I wear armor or not. He left the armor as the new foundation of the Perry family. Not long after, Zichun arrived outside the Perry family. After getting an accurate answer and letting the spirit-devouring King Grass search, he went to the next city. Just like that, he walked through one city after another. The Protoss following behind him looked at the natives who did not dare to say a word and were extremely excited. They did not expect that these natives would have such a day. The Netherworld leader following behind looked at Zichun in front of him with shock in his eyes. Such a person was indeed very strong, and such a feat was not something he could do. He did not have the courage nor the strength. He knew that the most difficult battle would break out in Skyfield City, because that was the only way out of this world. Those fourth-rank kings would gather there to decide whether to start the battle. After walking through one city after another, Zichun finally arrived at Sky Domain City. This was the core city. At the very center of the city, there was a huge pillar of light. The pillar of light shot straight into the sky. It was the light of teleportation. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens above. The area outside Sky Domain City was empty, but there were many people standing on the city walls. These people stared coldly at Zichun, who was approaching Sky Domain City. They were all at the fourth rank. In this world, all the rank 4 natives had gathered here. They were forced here by Zichun. Zichun's original intention was to let them leave, but they gathered here and did not leave. Clearly, they had other thoughts in their hearts. You can stop here. Zichun glanced at Clevenly beside him. I'll go in with you, sir. Clevenly said. No need. Just wait here. If a battle breaks out, I won't be able to take care of you. With that, Zichun flew forward. There was no protective array above Sky Domain City, so he flew directly into the city. Above the city walls, he looked down at the rank 4 natives and said coldly, Didn't I tell you to leave this world? Why aren't you moving? You're too arrogant. A cold voice sounded. An old man flew into the sky. Beside him was a 4th-rank King Soul Beast. Seeing this old man, there was a commotion in the crowd. From time to time, there would be exclamations. It was the Hob faction. This member of the Soul Race's royal family had finally made an appearance. You've gone too far. Another figure flew into the sky and looked at Zichun coldly. This person was the royal faction of the Soldier Clan, the Moni Clan. The Soul Clan, the Soldier Clan, and the Craftsman Clan were the 3 clans in this area. All the natives could be grouped into these 3 clans. In these 3 clans, there was a royal faction. Now, 2 of the 3 royal factions had appeared. Only the Kong clan of the Craftsman clan was left. Whoosh! Another brilliance flashed, accompanied by exclamations. Zichun knew that the 3 royal factions had all arrived. Looking at the people of the 3 royal factions, Zichun said indifferently, Is everyone here? That's great. You have 10 minutes to decide whether to fight or leave. Facing a group of rank 4 kings alone with such a calm attitude, the other rank 4 kings were enraged. The rank 4 king from the Hob family said, Don't go too far. Zichun calmly replied, Remember, don't be the first to stick your neck out. Then, he looked down at the rank 4 kings and said, And you guys, you'd better retreat when the battle starts because I'll only kill those in front of me. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the rank 4 kings changed. Some of them subconsciously retreated. However, there were still some people who were not afraid at all. They said coldly, If you really have the ability, then come at me. Zichun glanced at the rank 4 kings who deliberately stepped forward and said with a faint smile, Time's up. After that, he rushed down. Buzz. The void vibrated. The aura of a rank 4 king broke out. The strongest power was displayed from Zichun. Zichun moved as fast as teleportation into the crowd. He unsheathed his saber. The saber flashed, flashing with the light of yin and yang, and cut in all directions. Puff, puff, puff. Blood splashed, and the sound of flesh being broken was heard. Around Zichun, there was no rank 4 king who could stand. The other rank 4 kings' expressions changed greatly. They retreated one after another. They looked at Ziqian with anger in their eyes, because the time was not up at all. Why did he take action in advance? Ziqian sheathed his saber and looked at the frightened rank 4 kings around. He said coldly, "Time's up. Since you have made your choice, don't blame me." After that, he disappeared. He reappeared in the crowd again. When he appeared, an arc of a blade appeared. The saber arc swept around. All the rank 4 kings who were touched by the saber arc died. Their bodies were swallowed by the spirit-devouring king grass that appeared later. Looking at Ziqian's almost slaughtering way of killing, the other rank 4 kings were terrified. They exclaimed and flew away. They did not expect that Ziqian would be so unruly. "You're courting death." The 3 rank 4 kings from the royal family shouted angrily and flew towards Ziqian. Ziqian looked indifferent. His figure flashed again, and he appeared in front of the 3. Buzz. The void trembled again. The saber light cut through the sky. The 3 rank 4 kings who swooped down died in an instant. The God clan who watched the battle behind were extremely shocked. Ziqian's combat capability was too strong. Chapter 3087. The battle lasted for a short time, but more than 24th grade kings had died. All the 4th grade kings knew that Ziqian's combat power was very strong, but they also knew that if this continued, Ziqian's combat power would decline because of the huge consumption. Then, he would be killed by everyone. But with Ziqian's current means of killing, who could hold on until then? At this moment, whoever went up would die. Swish, swish. Almost without hesitation, many 4th grade kings in the crowd flew back and directly entered the light column. They chose to leave. After all, they were all from other families and had no relatives or friends with these people. There was no need to be cannon fodder for them to consume Ziqian's energy. Buzz. Ziqian was still killing. He killed everyone he saw, and they were all 4th grade kings. Broken limbs flew all over the sky, and it rained blood. More 4th grade kings fled in horror. Seeing the current situation, the 3 royal family forces couldn't give orders even if they wanted to, because no one would listen to them when their lives were in danger. Therefore, those 4th grade kings who had united to fight against Ziqian were killed by Ziqian. One 4th grade king after another fled into the light column in embarrassment. Seeing this scene, Clevenly's expression became relaxed. The biggest crisis had been resolved. Next, it was time for Clevenly's force to rise. Because among all the indigenous people, except for them, no other force had a 4th grade king. From Ziqian's appearance to the end of the battle, it had only been 10 minutes. He couldn't see any 4th grade king in his sight. They were either dead or had left. None of them were left, because Ziqian no longer spoke and killed everyone he saw. Some 4th grade kings who wanted to say something to Ziqian didn't dare to continue speaking and fled in an instant. But it didn't mean that there were no 4th grade kings in other places. Ziqian turned to look at Clevenly and said, "Take me to the area of the 3 royal families." Clevenly flew over. At this moment, he still couldn't hide his shock. So many 4th grade kings were defeated by Ziqian, and they even ran away. Next, there were only 3 4th grade kings left in this world. Hobbs' influence had its own city, but Ziqian believed that all their rank 4 martial artists were in Sky Domain City. After arriving outside the Hob faction, Ziqian glanced at the terrified natives and said coldly, "I'll give you all the time to say goodbye. Otherwise, you know the consequences." The Hob faction was a royal faction. When had they ever been threatened like this? However, in the face of Ziqian's threat, they dared not speak up. Because they had missed the best opportunity to kill Ziqian, they could only passively accept what was happening. If they had known that this day would come, they would have sent a rank 4 to kill Ziqian. Now, he was raising a tiger and inviting calamity. Whoosh! One after another, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard from Hobbs' forces. It was their rank 4. All of them were flying towards the center of the Sky Domain City, leaving this world. Then came the royal family of the Bin race, the Moni family. After awakening, the people of the Bin race would have a powerful weapon that accompanied them. Their combat power was extremely strong. However, in the face of Ziqian's coercion, they were helpless. They had a strong foundation, so they could fight. However, if they were crippled by Ziqian, the royal family would be destroyed and replaced by other forces. Therefore, after much consideration, they gave up resisting. They had a strong foundation and would soon cultivate a new rank 4. Therefore, there was no need to fight to the death with Zichun. Even if they did not have a rank 4, they had the most rank 3 martial artists. They were fully capable of protecting themselves. Therefore, the rank 4 martial artists of the Moni family left. Next was the last family left, the Kong family of the royal craftsman family. Speaking of which, Zichun had some ties with the Kong family. He had a good relationship with Kong Imo. The last time they came to this world, it was also thanks to Kong Imo that they reached Wang Yiping directly. They arrived at the mansion of the Kong family. Outside of the Kong family, the first person Zichun met was Kong Imo. In the distance, Chris's expression changed. When he cooperated with Zichun, he had a deep understanding of Zichun. Naturally, he was aware of the relationship between him and Kong Imo. In the past few hundred years, they had wanted to be on good terms with the Kong family. However, today, Zichun had killed so many people, including the Kong family. Therefore, the little bit of affection that he had accumulated had already been used up in the previous battle with Zichun. Now, if Zichun let go of the Kong family's rank 4 martial artist because of his relationship with Kong Imo, it was definitely not good news for the Kli family. Moreover, the Kong family would even destroy the Kli family after Zichun left. This was because everyone knew that in the past few hundred years, the Kli family had accumulated an extremely rich amount of resources. Even the royal family would drool over these resources. Zichun looked at Kong Imo in front of him and said, "Not bad, you've reached rank 2. Kong Imo scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. His eyes were clear and pure, and his smile was still very pure. Zichun also smiled, then looked at the Kong family behind him and said mockingly, "What is the meaning of this? You want to use Kong Imo as a shield? I remember that your family said that even if we came to your Kong family to be servants, you wouldn't take us seriously." The Kong family behind him had an ugly expression, but in order to not lose any rank 4 martial artists, they had no choice. Zichun continued to look at Kong Imo. At this moment, there was a hint of guilt in Kong Mo's eyes. Zichun said with a smile, "You don't need to feel guilty. If you don't want to stay here, you can go to the Nightmare faction. Brother Monk and Brother Zhang Haoyin will stay this time. They can provide you with resources." Kong Imo stood there, not knowing what to say. You've been suppressing his cultivation level. I'm sure it was for today, right? But I'll tell you clearly that I hate people like you even more, so I'll give you a chance. Either your family is destroyed, or your rank 4 martial artist leaves. Zichun said coldly. He could see the situation clearly. If the Kong family's rank 4 martial artist stayed, not only would the Kelly family suffer, but the Shun clan's current situation, which had been won with great difficulty, would also be beaten back to its original state. Zichun looked at the Kong family members who had ugly expressions and said, "In my eyes, Kong Imo is Kong Imo, and the Kong family is the Kong family. So, let the countdown begin. Zichun, for my sake, can you let the Kong family's rank 4 martial artist stay here?" At this moment, a voice came from behind. It was the Netherworld leader. At this moment, he was speaking for the Kong family. It was obvious that the Kong family was secretly supporting the Netherworld. This was something that Zichun did not expect, so he frowned slightly. Speaking of which, he was indebted to the Netherworld leader. However, he was very clear about the danger of letting the Kong family's rank 4 martial artist stay. I can guarantee that the Kong family's rank 4 martial artist will not be disloyal. He will definitely not do anything to the Shin clan, said the Netherworld leader. At the back, the Kelly family master's face turned pale. This was because the Netherworld leader's words were very obvious. The Kong family would not do anything to the Shin clan, but it did not mean that they would not do anything to them. In other words, this was a reminder. If all the rank 4 martial artists left, leaving the Kelly family alone would not be good for the Shin clan. Although the Kelly family was an ally of the Shin clan, an ally could become an enemy at any time if there were no restrictions. Chapter 3088. Previously, Zichun had told the Kong family that Kong Imo was Kong Imo, and the Kong family was the Kong family. His relationship with Kong Imo could not protect the Kong family. However, Zichun could not ignore the Netherworld Chief's words. This was because the Netherworld Chief had helped him before, whether it was the resources he had exchanged or the Netherworld energy his doppelganger had obtained. Now, Zichun was in a difficult position. Behind him, not only was Master Kelly very nervous, but the God Clan members who followed him were also very emotional. They did not know what Kelly's forces would do in the future and whether they would become enemies with them. However, they knew that if they left the Kong family's rank 4 king alive, it would be the biggest threat to them. This was because this was a royal family. Based on the rank 4 kings of other royal families, the Kong family must have a lot of rank 4 kings. How should Zichun choose? Everyone was waiting. Looking at this scene from behind, Yue snorted and said, "Fussy and not decisive at all. This is the difference between a pedantic guy like you and me." Everyone knew what to choose at this moment. However, for Zichun, he could not ignore the kindness of the past. This was also the reason why many people were willing to follow Zichun. If he was really a decisive and ruthless person, they might not be willing to follow him. It's easy to talk about small matters. However, this is a matter of life and death for the God Clan. There is no room for negotiation. After a while, Zichun spoke. His voice was very decisive. The Netherworld Chief sighed but did not say anything. He turned around and left. He had done what he needed to do. Master Kelly heaved a sigh of relief. There was a touch of gratitude in his eyes. Obviously, Zichun trusted him and the Kelly family. Then, Zichun looked at the Kong family members who had ugly expressions and said, after 3 breaths, "If the Kong family still has a rank 4 king, then the Kong family will be destroyed." Following Zichun's words, rays of light flew out from the Kong family and went directly into the distance. Sensing these different auras, Zichun's expression became more and more ugly. That was because there weren't only rank 4 craftsmen among them. There were also rank 4 craftsmen who emitted other auras. Obviously, they thought that by relying on Kongamo and the Netherworld Chief, they would be able to ensure that the Kong family's rank 4s did not leave. While they were at it, they also left some rank 4s behind for the other forces. Zichun's eyes turned cold and even had a hint of killing intent. The faces of the Kong clan members changed drastically. If Zichun chose to attack them at this time, then the Kong clan would definitely be destroyed. "Kongamo, go to the Nightmare faction," Zichun said to Kongamo. He didn't take action in the end. Kongamo was in a difficult position. Zichun said, "Go ahead. I'll repay them for the training they gave you by sparing the Kong family this time." Leaving behind the other rank 4 fighters, just this point alone had already made the Kong family disloyal. If this guy continued to stay, it would definitely be disadvantageous to the Protoss. Kongamo nodded and came behind Zichun. Zichun turned around and said to the distance, "Next, I'll screen this world again. If I find more rank 4 fighters, then I'll implicate the entire clan." Zichun's meaning was clear. If he found more rank 4 fighters, then that clan would be destroyed. The first place will be Tianyu City. As his voice fell, a ray of light disappeared into the ground. It was the spirit-devouring king grass that had reached rank 4. Not only could the spirit-devouring king grass burrow into the ground, but its perception was also very sharp. It could sense the fluctuations of powerhouses. Such a scene made all the indigenous people's faces turn ugly. However, they were also relieved because Zichun didn't start a massacre. He didn't want to enslave them like they did to the Protoss. With Zichun's current strength, it wouldn't be difficult to enslave them. He just needed to kill a large number of people. At that time, all the clans would be useless. No forces dared to play tricks at this time. Naturally, the spirit-devouring king grass was found in vain. Next, Zichun and the rest came to the core area of Tianyu City. They stood in front of the light pillar and sensed the powerful fluctuations in the light pillar. Zichun turned around and looked at Su Mingyao and the rest. They nodded their heads and walked over. It was time to leave. Kongamo said goodbye to Zichun and walked over to Monk. The master of the Klee family bowed to Zichun and said, "Sir, please rest assured. As long as the Klee family is in this world, we will be the strongest ally of the Nightmare faction and the other Protoss." Zichun nodded and said, "From now on, buy the resources at the normal price." The master of the Klee family was in a difficult position. "It's okay. This world needs to develop in an orderly manner, Zichun said. The master of the Klee family nodded and agreed. If the family is in danger, you can look for Monk, Zichun said. The people brought by Zichun had all reached rank 4. Those who stayed behind were naturally rank 4 as well. Therefore, the master of the Klee family understood what Zichun meant. Moreover, Zichun dared to leave at this time because he had made a lot of preparations. He had also considered the possibility of all the indigenous forces joining forces to suppress him. Therefore, the master of the Klee family had full confidence in Zichun. After that, Zichun looked at Yanwei and said, "I'll have to trouble you in the end." Yanwei frowned and said, "You're too wishy-washy. I know what to do." Yanwei was very familiar with this world and knew what he should do next. His enmity with Zichun was limited to the Protoss world. There, they could fight to the death. It was their own business. However, if they fought here, it would only be disadvantageous to them. In a place like this, the Protoss could not have conflicts. Otherwise, their already bad situation would become worse. Zichun did not leave immediately. He wanted to wait for the spirit-devouring King Grass to return from his patrol. He waited for a few days. The indigenous people in the city were in a state of anxiety. They were worried that Zichun would kill them in anger. The spirit-devouring King Grass had finally returned. Naturally, he did not find anything. This allowed Zichun to completely relax. He turned around and cupped his fists at the crowd before directly entering the light pillar. At the same time, Su Mingyao and the others followed him. Swoosh! With a flash of brilliance, Zichun and the others disappeared and went to the next level. Seeing Zichun leave, all the indigenous people heaved a sigh of relief. Without Zichun, their biggest threat, and without the terrifying dark heavenly ant, they were not afraid of anyone. Moreover, with Zichun around, the suppressed anger in their hearts was reignited. Although the Protoss had many people, they were very weak. Their only reliance was the Klee family, which could not be compared with the enormous indigenous forces. "Let's go," the new leader of the Nightmare Force said. The master of the Klee family followed the monk and the others out. Among them, there were several rank 4 experts. Naturally, the indigenous people did not dare to stop them. Chapter 3089. Zichun and the others stepped into the light pillar and arrived at the second level of the Divine King Heavenly Domain. It did not take long to reach the first level of the Divine King Heavenly Domain. In an instant, he felt as if he was on solid ground again. Arriving at the second level of the Divine King Heavenly Domain, Zichun was the first to feel an extremely strong pressure. This pressure fell on his body, causing his breathing to quicken slightly. Beside him, Su Mingyao and the others exclaimed. Zichun looked around and saw a huge protective light shield. They were the only ones in the light shield. "Is everyone okay?" Zichun asked. The others shook their heads. The previous pressure came too suddenly. After a few breaths, they were already familiar with this place, so the pressure was nothing. "Look outside." "What is that?" Su Mingyao suddenly said. Zichun looked outside the light shield. He saw people. They were the Aboriginals. There were many of them, forming a circle. As Zichun looked, he saw many cold gazes, and those gazes were surging with killing intent. "They are here to cause trouble," Devil Ape said in a deep voice. They did not walk into the light shield, but looked ahead coldly. Obviously, they were here for them. This scene was somewhat out of Zichun's expectation. In his expectation, they would come to the second level randomly and not be limited to a position. But now, it was obviously different. However, Zichun also considered this situation. Since everyone could appear in a fixed place, there must be restrictions here. Otherwise, if there were experts guarding outside, no one would be able to leave alive. His gaze swept past those people. Occasionally, he would see some familiar faces. They were the grade 4 experts that they had chased into this world. But in the next level, they were not so conspicuous here. They could only act as messengers. "Let's go." Taking a deep breath, Zichun adjusted his emotions and walked out of the light shield. The others followed behind Zichun. When the Aboriginals outside saw Zichun and the others walk out without hesitation, they were very surprised. Then, they were enraged. As Zichun walked out, Angry shouts of "Kill him" rang out one after another. Zichen walked out, looked at everyone and said, "It's very lively. Are you all here to welcome us?" Zichen, stop dreaming. Since you dared to come to this level, today is the day you die. A rank 4 martial artist in the crowd said coldly. Death date? Zichen looked at the rank for who spoke. A hint of mockery appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "With just you, an idiot? You're courting death." The rank 4 shouted angrily. "What? Did I say something wrong? If you weren't an idiot, how could I have chased you to this place?" Zichen said coldly. More cold gazes were cast over, and cold, murderous intents filled the air. "There are so many of you idiots here. Do you want to kill me? Come on then. Do you want to fight me one-on-one, or as a group? Choose one," Zichen said coldly as he looked at them. Even though not all of them were at rank 4, and even though some of them made him feel threatened, he was still not afraid. This was because this was a huge city. The Aboriginals were not the only ones in this city. When he released his spiritual thoughts, he also saw members of the God Clan. Based on past experience, fighting should be prohibited in this kind of city. Earlier, when we heard that you were very arrogant, we didn't think much of it. We didn't expect you to be so arrogant. A cold voice rang out. It came from a middle-aged man. He stood in front of Zichen. One of the sources of danger that Zichen sensed came from this person. He looked at the middle-aged man without fear and said, "Arrogant? I don't think so. What you did when you destroyed the awakening altar was the real arrogance. You deliberately angered me. Do you want to die?" The man narrowed his eyes. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Zichen looked at him and said, "Angered you? Why? You should be thanking me. Even though I had absolute power, I still let your aboriginals live in this city instead of enslaving them." As soon as he said this, the murderous intent in the crowd became more intense. Zichen said coldly, "Do you want to fight? If you want to fight, then fight. I'll keep you company anytime. If you don't want to fight, then get out of my way. You're courting death." The middle-aged man released his aura. It was much stronger than that of a rank 4. At the same time, all kinds of powerful auras were released and fell on Zichen and his companions. Zichen's eyes were cold. Light appeared on his body to resist the pressure from all around him. Naturally, he had no friendship with these people. Since he had met them, there was no point in giving in. Moreover, based on Zichen's experience, there were so many people here. It was more of a demonstration than a fight. The murderous intent in the surroundings was extremely intense. A fight seemed to be about to break out at any time. Even if he dies, he can only die on the battlefield. A voice came from behind. The crowd parted. A God Clan member wearing armor and surging with a murderous aura walked over. The God Clan member who walked out glanced at Zichen and his companions. Then, he looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Fairy, you're not going to break the rules, are you?" The middle-aged man named Fairy snorted coldly and said, "You want me to break the rules just because of him? You came at the right time. Hurry up and take him away. I think he's quite energetic. Let him join the battle as soon as possible. This place needs energetic guys like him." After saying this, the middle-aged man named Fairy turned and left. As soon as he left, the other aboriginals also left. In the blink of an eye, only Zichen and his companions, as well as the God Clan members with powerful auras, were left. "You're Zichen, right? You are very courageous, but if you infuriate him, he will really kill you here," said the divine general in armor. "Can people fight in this city?" Zichen asked. "Of course not. However, the rules here are set by people. You only need to pay a price for killing people. Therefore, don't anger them in the future," the God Clan member said. "Sir, you've awakened your power?" Zichen asked in surprise. The God Clan member's aura was very powerful. It was obvious that he had awakened his power. The God Clan member said, "My name is Buyan. I have indeed awakened my power. We already know what you've done in the lower levels. You've given the God Clan a chance to rise again. That's why I'm here this time. It's also a way to thank you." Buyuan looked at Zichen and said, "Follow me. I'll tell you about the structure of this world." In this world, Zichen didn't know anyone. Naturally, he had to follow Buyuan. Chapter 3090. Upon hearing Bo Yuan's words, Zichun was very surprised and puzzled. Why? Since they were going to be destroyed, why leave behind the awakening altars to control the divine race? Why not control them in the lower levels? Were they not afraid that the divine race would directly attack the natives after obtaining power? Bo Yuan said in a deep voice, because there are enemies here. Enemy? Zichen's face revealed a hint of surprise. Powerhouses from another space-time. Bo Yuan said, isn't this place built by the celestial gods? Why are there powerhouses from another space-time here? Zichen asked doubtfully. The so-called powerhouses from another space-time were naturally those who called themselves the Celestials. Bo Yuan shook his head. No one knows. The natives need us to fight, so they did not destroy the awakening altars. However, the altars here are not for the divine race to use casually. They need to be exchanged with contribution points. What contribution points? Bo Yuan raised his head and pointed to the sky. Do you see that floating castle? That's the city's trading ground. When you go out to fight, a contribution token will automatically appear. It will record the contribution points you obtained from killing the enemy. After that, you can take those contribution points and exchange them there. Who sets the contribution points? Who makes the tokens? Zichen asked again. Bo Yuan shook his head. Everything is set by the laws. It is said that many celestial gods spent a lot of money to communicate with the laws of heaven and earth to complete everything. But at the very beginning, there was no castle in the sky, only a huge ball of light. We can exchange our contribution points for anything we want from there. But now it's not possible. Zichun did not speak and quietly listened to Bo Yuan. After the indigenous people completely suppressed the divine race, they deliberately built a castle outside the light sphere. The main function of this castle is to block us divine race so that we can't directly exchange the resources we need from the light sphere. Then what's the point of this castle? Zichun was very puzzled. There are other things in the castle that can be exchanged, but those things are provided by the natives. The most common thing among them is the quota. Use the contribution points obtained on the battlefield to exchange for the awakening altars. When Zichun heard this, his expression changed. He didn't expect this to be the case. Are there many awakening altars in this world? Zichun asked again. There aren't as many lower levels as before, but every family has one, Bo Yuan said. If that's the case, why don't you wait until you've awakened before you fight? Bo Yuan smiled bitterly. They only care about contribution. Who cares about the life and death of the Protoss? Without contribution points, there are naturally no resources to exchange for. If that's the case, why not snatch an altar? The natives here have the best resources and the best equipment. Who would dare to rob them? Moreover, everyone here had a common enemy, so they were relatively more united, unlike the lower class. At the same time, because they are willing to give in to some of the Protoss in this world, we are the ones who are not united. Bo Yuan laughed bitterly, his words full of helplessness. After they heard about Zichen's feat in the lower levels, they carefully analyzed the situation and concluded that the biggest reason for Zichen's success was that the natives were not united and guarded against each other. In this world, it was the opposite. The Protoss were not united, so they couldn't do what Zichen had done in the lower levels. Zichen didn't expect the world to be like this. He followed Bo Yuan, but he didn't know what to say. This city was very large, and there were both natives and Protoss in the city. The Protoss they met along the way had smiles on their faces, as if they were very satisfied with their current lives. When the Protoss go out, they will form teams and work together to kill creatures of other races, Bo Yuan said. Zichun nodded. Along the way, he listened to Bo Yuan talk about some things about this world. How can we leave this place? Zichen asked the most important question. Once you reach level 8, you can leave this place, Bo Yuan said. Will you return to the realm of the gods? Zichen asked. Bo Yuan shook his head. I'm not sure. If you can't reach level 8, you can't leave? Yes. Doesn't that mean that the strongest in this world is level 7? You can understand it that way. Bo Yuan answered all the questions, which solved many of Zichen's doubts. I'll arrange a place for you to stay temporarily. When you go out to fight is all up to you. Since this is your first time here, according to the rules, You can stay here for a month. If you want to continue staying in this city, you'll have to pay the Supreme Crystal or exchange it with contribution points. Bo Yuan looked at Zichun and said, usually, after returning from a fight, you'll have half a month's free stay. First, it's to recover, and second, it's to relax. I heard that when you were in the lower levels, your biggest reliance was controlling the dark heavenly ants? Bo Yuan's voice suddenly sounded, but this time, it wasn't a normal conversation, but a voice transmission. Zichun was slightly startled and didn't know how to respond. Bo Yuan continued. There's always a rumor that you control an ant queen, so you must be careful when you go out. The dark heavenly ants are equivalent to an army. You can get countless contribution points by going out to fight. In this world, contribution points can be exchanged for everything, and it's also the foundation of everything. Zichun replied, I'm just cooperating with the ant queen. I haven't tamed it. I'm afraid no one will believe this. Anyway, you must be careful. Be careful of everyone. Bo Yuan brought Zichun to his residence, where many members of the divine race lived. As the news of Zichun's arrival spread, many Protoss came to express their gratitude to Zichun. Among these people, Zichun didn't know any of them, so Zichun only exchanged a few words with them. After these people left, Zichun's figure flashed and entered the world. At the same time, Su Mingyao and the others also entered his world. Zichun frowned and said, It's too different from our original plan. This is going to be troublesome. This world had its own structure and was closely connected to the natives. It was extremely difficult to develop a faction alone. As such, those Protoss he nurtured in the Nightmare faction might not be able to contact them when they came to this world. Most importantly, they were already in trouble. Just earlier, among those strangers who came to express their gratitude, a few of them inadvertently mentioned the dark heavenly ants. This was the source of the trouble. Everyone didn't understand this world and didn't know what to do at this time. After pondering for a moment, Zichun walked toward the Ant Queen. Chapter 3091. Zichun went to look for the Queen Ant and told her about the situation in this world and what they would have to face next. According to our agreement, if you want to leave, I'll let you leave anytime, Zichun said to the Queen Ant. The Queen Ant's knowledge of this world was limited to what Zichun had told her. She didn't even know what level of existence the creatures from another space-time were. Under such circumstances, she would be in danger if she left. After thinking for a while, the Queen Ant said, Let's wait for a while. That's good too. We know nothing about this world at the moment. Let me find out more information first, Zichun said. In the next few days, Zichun didn't see Bo Yuan again. Every day, there would be many unfamiliar gods who would come to express their gratitude and ask for information about the dark heavenly ant. Zichun told them that the dark heavenly ant was in the lower level, regardless of whether they believed him or not. At the same time, he asked them about other information about this world. For example, contribution points. Speaking of contribution points, these people were extremely excited because it was everything in this world and they could exchange it for anything they wanted. This included equipment, skills, Supreme Crystal, and even the King of God's Spirit Essence. If they were willing, this also included women. The enemy's level ranged from grade 1 to grade 7. They were similar to the creatures from another space-time in the realm of the gods, but they were much stronger. There are no heavenly clans here? Zichun asked. The heavenly clans were the biggest enemy of the gods in the realm of the gods. Yes, but they are all experts. At our level, we can't come into contact with them at all. Now, our enemies are the creatures from another space-time. There are many of them. Killing the lowest level one will give you 10 contribution points, grade 2 will give you 100, grade 3 will give you 1,000, and grade 4 will give you 10,000. In the exchange castle, 10,000 contribution points can be exchanged for a quota for awakening. Doesn't that mean we have to kill a creature from another space-time that is equivalent to a grade 4? Zichun said, That's true. However, no one can kill a grade 4 creature from another space-time. However, we can kill 1,000 Wang Yiping. Those who come here are at least rank 3. Even if they haven't awakened their powers, they can still deal with rank 1 experts. The oppression of the Protoss in this world was still no less than in the next level, but with Zichun's current realm and strength, it was impossible for him to do anything. On the 10th day after arriving in this world, Zichun heard a voice coming from outside. Zichun. Zichun heard the news and went out. He saw a 4th grade king of the Protoss standing outside. "What's up?" Zichun looked at him. The man said, "Master Boon wants me to tell you to get ready. Tomorrow, you'll go out with our team to fight." "All right." Zichun nodded. Back in the room, Zichun told everyone that he was going to fight. Naturally, no one objected. Back then, Bo Yuan had said that they could stay here for a month for free. However, it was obvious that this was only for the normal rank 3 martial artists. They were already rank 4 martial artists and rank 4 martial artists who had awakened their powers. Naturally, they were not ordinary people. The next day, the 4th grade martial artist from yesterday came again. He told Zichun and the others that they could set off. There were a total of 15 people in the 4th grade martial artists team. Zichun's team, on the other hand, had 13 people. "My name is Dick. I'll lead the team this time," said Dick, who was a 4th grade king. Zichun nodded and said, "This is our first time here. We're not familiar with this place yet. I hope Dick can give us some pointers." "Let's go." The team still needs one more person. Dick's gaze swept over the monster ape and the others. He nodded at them as a greeting, and then walked into the distance. Zichun and the others followed him. After a while, Zichun saw several people standing outside a mansion. These people were indigenous people. They seemed to be waiting for something. When Zichun noticed these indigenous people, his eyes flashed with surprise. This was because one of them was Wang Yiping. Zichun was surprised that Wang Yiping existed in this world. However, he soon understood the reason. Obviously, the other party was Wang Yiping. He was born in this world. "Why are you guys only here now?" Wang Yiping looked at the 4th grade martial artist in front of him and said unhappily. Thinking back to what Dick said earlier, Zichun frowned. Could it be that the person Dick said was Wang Yiping? "Sorry, something happened on the way here," Dick said apologetically. The indigenous person named Wang Yiping said impatiently, "Then hurry up. I want to see what the creatures from the alternate space-time look like." Dick nodded, then turned to the natives and said, "Goodbye." The indigenous people nodded impatiently. One of them waved his hand. "Let's go." The indigenous person ran forward, looking very excited. Zichun transmitted his voice to Dick. "What's the meaning of this?" Dick replied, "This is Master Buyuan's arrangement. This is your first time going out to fight. You'll slowly get used to it. In addition to fighting the creatures from the alternate space-time, we also have to bring the indigenous people of these forces out to train. During the training, the main contribution will be given to the other party." "Why?" Zichun asked, puzzled. "Because they have our lifeline. We have no other choice." Dick's words revealed some helplessness. Those indigenous people don't have to worry? Aren't they afraid that they'll die halfway? Zichun transmitted his voice again. "If the indigenous people we're protecting die outside, then we don't have to come back." "What do you mean?" "If the indigenous people die, we can only atone for our sins with our deaths, regardless of any uncontrollable reasons. Therefore, this situation usually doesn't happen. This is because before the indigenous people die, we'll have already died in battle." Isn't this too unreasonable? In this world, the indigenous people's words are the truth. The resources, weapons, and pills we use for cultivation are all provided by the indigenous people. Our lifeline is controlled by them. We can only have a good relationship with them. There's no other way. What about the powerhouses of our God clan? Why don't they fight for some benefits for us? This isn't a problem that a small 4th grade like me can understand. However, according to the rumors, the powerhouses of the God clan don't seem to be suppressed. Under the impatient urging of the unknown 1st grade indigenous person, Zichun and the others finally arrived at the gate of the huge city. The city was shrouded in a large formation. There were no soldiers guarding the gate. The group walked out of the city. At this time, there were still many teams going out of the city. Almost every team was followed by an indigenous person. These indigenous people were extremely arrogant. They despised and made things difficult for the God clan who protected them. Chapter 3092. The token that fell from the sky was a contribution token. This is the token that all the gods and aborigines will appear when they leave this world for the first time. The first great aborigine walking in front also has one in his hand. The contribution token is something that everyone in this world needs. After leaving the great city guarding formation, the native was like a wild horse that had escaped its reins, flying forward. Dick and the other gods became extremely nervous, worried that something will happen to the aborigine. Zichun and the others were all holding a token in their hands. At this moment, they were all sizing up the tokens. Dick said, "This token is a contribution token. As long as we kill the creatures of another space-time, the contribution points will automatically appear in our token. Everything is distributed according to the rules, so it is fair." Zichun smiled faintly when he heard this. If it is really fair, then this aborigine has nothing to do with it. You guys hurry up, I still have to kill the creatures of another space-time. The grade, one aborigine yelled at Dick and the others after he calmed down from his excitement. His tone is as if he is ordering his subordinates. Dick smiled helplessly at Zichun, and then sped up like the others, leaving Zichun and the others behind. "What do you think?" Zichun said. The others were speechless. What else can they say? They thought that when they came to this world, they could be righteous and even do something, but they didn't expect it to be like this. As they continued to move forward, they finally saw the creatures of another space-time. Originally, Zichun thought that the creatures of another space-time were the same as the gods, but after seeing them today, he knew that was not the case. The creatures of another space-time here are the creatures of another space-time of the gods, but they all have the realm of the God King. When Zichun was in the God realm, he controlled a brood mother, so he naturally knows about the creatures of another space-time. The lowest life form produced by the brood mother is the creatures of another space-time, and the higher life form is the gods of the gods, but Zichun has never seen a God King level creature of another space-time or the gods, nor has he heard about it from the brood mother. Now that he saw that the life form that should belong to the lowest level had actually become a divine king, Zichun was extremely shocked. Similarly, from another point of view, a mother nest that could produce these God King level creatures from another space-time was definitely of a high level. Su Mingyao and the others besides Zichun were also very surprised. They naturally knew about the existence of the mother nest. The battle in front of them broke out. After the god race had severely injured the creatures from the other space-time, that unknown native was in charge of killing them. Blood splattered everywhere as a God King level creature from another space-time died. A ray of light descended from the sky and enveloped the creature's corpse, following which its corpse disintegrated and disappeared. A ray of light appeared on the native's contribution token, indicating that he had obtained contribution points. Battles were still going on all around, and this indigenous person was shouting excitedly. He seemed to be in an extremely good mood. Dick, who was a fourth-grade king, stood guard by his side while the other divine kings fought around him. Every time a creature from another dimension was seriously injured and couldn't get up, this native would go up and deal the finishing blow. Zichun looked at this scene in silence, and his face became more and more gloomy. "Zichun, you don't have to worry about us, just fight." Dick's voice sounded in Zichun's mind. Zichun waved his hand, and Su Mingyao and the others dispersed, and the battle began. They were all fourth-grade kings, and their combat power was extremely strong. These creatures from another space-time were equivalent to first or second grade. In fact, these creatures from another space-time were very similar to the heavenly beasts of the lower level, but there were more of them. When they fought, they also mastered the power of rules. If they didn't awaken, a third grade could kill a first grade, but it would be difficult to fight a second grade. 10. Su Mingyao's voice sounded. Killing a first grade is worth 10 contribution points. Zichun stood there and didn't make a move. He frowned and looked ahead. A second grade is 100 contribution points. Su Mingyao's voice sounded again, and then she turned into a stream of light and went away. A moment later, Su Mingyao turned back, looked at Zichun and said, "A third grade is 1,000 contribution points." Su Mingyao was already a fourth grade, and her power of rules had been awakened. In this situation, fighting a fourth grade was not a problem, and killing a third grade was naturally easy. Zichun had heard of the conversion method of contribution points before, and now it was confirmed by Su Mingyao. "I say, you're too slow. Go find some more powerful enemies. After the previous excitement, the indigenous person began to complain that the speed of earning contribution points was too slow. Why are you standing in front of me? Hurry up and find some powerful enemies for me to kill. The indigenous person named Wang Yiping looked at Dick and said discontentedly. Dick said, I have to protect you. The indigenous person said discontentedly, I don't need your protection. I can protect myself. Dick still did not move. Zichun at the back looked ahead indifferently. After the previous battle, everyone had consumed a lot of energy, and in the team, only Dick had awakened. The rest of the third grade had not awakened. Under such circumstances, the battle was already very difficult. Everyone, take a rest, Dick said to the group of Protoss who had consumed a lot of energy. They nodded and withdrew from the battlefield. No rest, continue to fight. The indigenous person shouted, I said no rest. You. Before he could finish his words, he felt a cold, murderous intent behind him. That murderous intent made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave, and his body became extremely stiff, and he could not speak the words at the tip of his tongue. The murderous intent flashed and disappeared, and the other Protoss did not notice anything unusual, but they felt strange about the indigenous person's sudden silence. The murderous intent disappeared, and the chill dissipated, and the indigenous person regained control of his body. He slowly turned around, looked at Zichun, and said coldly, You want to kill me? Zichun looked at him quietly. The indigenous person continued, Do you know the consequences of killing me? None of you dare to enter the city again, because if you enter the city, you will be buried with me. And in the outside world, how long can you live? Zichun furrowed his brows. Here, I am the master. I hold your lives in my hands. You are all my servants or slaves. So, you can do whatever I want you to do. You can't do whatever you want, the indigenous person said proudly. A streak of black light shot towards the native. A powerful aura burst out, bringing with it a turbulent and terrifying aura. Dick's expression changed drastically when he saw this, and he rushed forward. With a loud bang, Dick's body was sent flying backwards. After landing, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and he shouted, Zichun, don't kill anyone. The one who attacked was the devil ape, but Dick knew very well that Zichun had the final say in this team. Chapter 3093. Wang Yiping stared at the demon ape, pretending to be calm. However, the cold sweat dripping down his forehead betrayed his inner thoughts. You little thing, you dare threaten us? The demon ape reached out and grabbed the man's collar. The expressions of the other gods changed, and they looked even more terrified than the natives. Forget it. Zichun spoke from behind. He knew what the demon ape wanted to do. The demon ape loosened its grip, gave the natives a cold look, and turned to leave. The natives shouted, You still don't dare to do anything to me. The devilish ape paused for a moment, and its eyes flashed with a brutal light. Zichun shook his head, and the demon ape walked over. Dick wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and walked over to Zichun. He smiled bitterly and said, Zichun, this is the rule of this world. We have no other choice. Zichun said, You should be able to refuse, right? The higher-ups have an agreement, so we have to carry it out, Dick said. We are all Milord's subordinates, so we naturally have to listen to Milord's orders. Seeing Zichun frown again, Dick said, This world is very stable and has many rules, so everyone needs a Milord. Without a Milord, many troubles will come to us. For example, you. Me? Zichun looked at Dick. If not for Lord Buyuan's protection, you would have been in trouble long ago. I'm sure you know what caused the trouble. Milord sent you out this time to let you understand some of the rules of this world, and then let you try to abide by them. Dick gestured with his hands and said, Only by following these rules can Milord protect you. If I'm in trouble, why does Milord still want to protect me? Zichun asked. Milord thinks you're different, and it's rare for someone different to appear in this world. So he doesn't want you to meet with misfortune before you've matured. Zichun had only met Buyuan once, so it couldn't be said that he was very friendly to him. It was just a feeling. However, Zichun remembered his last reminder. Zichun glanced at the native and said, When will this situation end? When he wants to go back, or when he has 10,000 contribution points, Dick said. Zichen looked at the dozen or so people. 10,000 contribution points was equivalent to killing 10 third-grade King Realm beings from the alternate time and space. In this team, only Dick had the strength to do so, but he obviously wouldn't do anything. He would only protect the lives of the natives. Based on their current strength, killing Wang Yiping would only give them 10 contribution points. In other words, without Dick's help, they would have to kill 1,000 Wang Yiping's space-time creatures to complete the mission. You don't need to care about us. You just need to familiarize yourself with this world. Let's go. With the thought that out of sight, out of mind, Zichun left the team and flew into the distance. During this time, he released his spiritual sense and sensed the many God King level life forms from another space-time. Zichun had an illusion that he had returned to the God realm. With a flash of brilliance, Shadowless appeared. Please, Zichun said. Since the life forms from another space-time here were life forms, there must be a mother nest. Zichun wanted to see if he could control a mother nest. At the same time, Zichun flew further away. The level of the enemies he encountered was getting higher. After arriving at the residence of the fourth-grade life form from another space-time, Zichun opened the world and released the Queen Ant. During this time, he said, "We're out." The Queen Ant's spiritual sense spread out and saw the other life forms from another space-time around. Zichun said, "I deliberately came to the depths. There are low-level life forms in the periphery. However, everything here seems to be controlled by the rules. It's completely different from what we imagined." As he spoke, Zichun flew forward. During this time, he had a long saber in his hand. With a buzzing sound, the long saber was unsheathed and a light flashed. Zichun stopped. Behind him, a life form from another space-time that was in an attacking state stopped. Its body was split in the middle and blood splattered all over the ground. The Queen Ant looked at the dead life form from another space-time and saw its body disappear in the next moment. At the same time, a ray of light fell from the sky. Zichun's contribution token released a light. 10,000 contribution points. Zichun waved the contribution token in his hand at the Queen Ant and said, "This is the contribution token. The number inside is the contribution points. You can obtain it by killing the life form from another space-time here. All of this is controlled by the rules." The Queen Ant said, "Release a few of them." Zichun released 3 dark heavenly ants. They were all 4th-grade ants. They charged toward a life form from another space-time. There was no technique in the battle between the two sides. It was a pure competition of strength. With an absolute advantage in numbers, the 3 dark heavenly ants won and killed the life form from another space-time. After killing the enemy, they devoured the life form from another space-time. It was unknown if they devoured anything useful. The corpse of the life form from another space-time disappeared. At the same time, another ray of light appeared on the contribution token in Zichun's hand. It was 10,000 points. Zichun was a little surprised and even shocked. The life form from another space-time killed by the dark heavenly ants would also have contribution points. Moreover, it would be added to him. At this moment, Zichun looked at the Queen Ant. The Queen Ant nodded and said, "I can extract useful rule power from them. Should I release all of them now?" Zichun asked. The Queen Ant shook her head and said, "No, I have no intention of leaving for the time being. We can continue to work together. Just like on the other level, I'll contribute to you, and you'll provide the world for us." Obviously, the Queen Ant was very smart. Because it didn't understand this world at all, once it left Zichun, it didn't know if it could hide here smoothly. Therefore, it still chose to hide in Zichun's world. This was because Zichun's world was hidden enough and safe enough. "That's good," Zichun said. "Let's let everyone come out and practice first." Zichun opened the world and saw many dark heavenly ants. They were 4th grade and were cultivated by the Queen Ant, using the dark heavenly ants to devour the aboriginals. After they appeared, they went to find the life form from another space-time to fight. Zichun released his spiritual thoughts and checked if there were other divine clan members or aboriginals around. The dark heavenly ants had to be kept a secret. Otherwise, trouble would come instantly. The trouble that Dick told him previously came from the dark heavenly ants. The contribution points on his contribution token started to increase rapidly, and the numbers kept changing. Chapter 3094. The Queen Ant returned to Zichen's world. She did not need to fight as the energy that the dark, heavenly ants devoured would be given to her. She and Zichen were truly working together this time. One wanted energy while the other wanted contribution points. Looking at the battle ahead, Zichen was very satisfied. However, he could not expose the dark, heavenly ants too much. Hence, the battle lasted for a short time before Zichen kept them all. After that, Zichen turned back. After a short rest, the grade 3 experts that Dick brought along had already started fighting. It would undoubtedly take a long time to kill 1,000 creatures from another space-time. Zichen and the rest were fighting in another direction. The creatures that they killed were all grade 4 king-level creatures from another space-time. Their contribution tokens were constantly glowing and the numbers on them were constantly changing. However, these contribution points could only be exchanged for resources at the natives. During this period, many of the contribution points would be exploited. However, if they did not exchange for them at the natives, there would be no other place to exchange for them. Once they left the city, the contribution points would be of no use. It would just be a number. Compared to the other direction, Zichen and the rest obtained a lot of contribution points. This was because there were many enemies and their combat power was strong enough. Even without the help of the dark heavenly ants, they still obtained a lot of contribution points. During this period, he did not have any communication with the Wang Yiping natives. After Dick informed the team that it was time to return, Zichen reunited with them. Shadowless went to check the surroundings but found nothing. Then, everyone returned to the city. This time, if they wanted to stay in the city, they would have to pay a certain amount of supreme crystal. This huge system was also under the jurisdiction of the natives. When they passed by the residence of the Wang Yiping natives, there were already people waiting there. When they saw Dick and the rest, one of them said unhappily, "So many of you went there. Why did it take you so long to return?" "Sorry," Dick said. "They didn't take any action." The Wang Yiping natives turned around and pointed at Zichen and the rest. "What?" The natives who spoke earlier stared coldly at Zichen. Why didn't they take any action? Zichen glanced at the other party and said indifferently, "Let's go." Next, his group of more than 10 people walked into the distance. Being ignored by Zichen completely infuriated the other party. However, before he could open his mouth, Zichen's voice sounded. "Why must you seek death?" The native was startled, and the anger on his face dissipated. Zichen and his group had already walked far away. Dick didn't stay either and left with the others. Although they did not obtain a single contribution point this time, the mission was successfully completed without any casualties. This was already very rare. Zichen looked up at the trading castle and said, "Let's go there and have a look." The group of people soared into the sky and headed straight for the exchange castle. At this time, there were people coming in and out of the trading castle constantly. There were both Shin clan and natives. The arrival of Zichen and his group did not attract too much attention. However, Su Mingyao and the other girls attracted a lot of attention. However, in this world, although beautiful women were very attractive, contributions were more attractive. The gazes that fell on them quickly moved away. Zichen and his group arrived at the trading castle. From the outside, it looked like a castle, but after entering, it was a huge space. There were many shops in this space, like an extremely prosperous street. Zichen's gaze swept across these shops. The first thing he saw was the awakening quota. Every shop had it, and it was 10,000 contribution points. The price was also the same. The group continued forward. Along the way, they saw weapons, supreme crystal, and even godly king soul essences that could be exchanged. Supreme crystal was exchanged for 2 contribution points, but godly king soul essences were much more expensive. They were as high as 20,000 contribution points, which was equivalent to killing 2 4th-grade king realm beings from another space-time. There were all kinds of weapons, and they were all made by the natives of the craftsman clan. Just as Zichen and his group were looking at these shops, Shadowless walked in another direction. That place was where the natives went. All the natives who came here would go there. There was a door there. The door emitted light, and there was some kind of restriction. All the natives walked in. Shadowless also walked in, and he didn't encounter any obstacles along the way. Then, he saw a huge ball of light. In this ball of light, there were countless small boxes, and each box had an item. Those items were the resources that could be exchanged. There were all kinds of them. Among them, the most common was the Supreme Crystal. 1 contribution point could exchange for 2 pieces. Shadowless was stunned when he saw the price. If he remembered correctly, it was 2 contribution points for 1 piece outside. These natives exchanged hands, and the price increased by several times. Then, Shadowless saw the Godly King's soul essences. 1,000 contribution points could exchange for 1 piece. In the outside world, it was worth 20,000. The price had increased by 20 times. Next were all kinds of weapons and defensive items. Compared to the outside world, the prices here were slightly higher, but they were all very exquisite. The quality was much higher than the outside world. However, there wasn't a single exquisite weapon here. This made Shadowless feel very strange. Then, Shadowless's pupil shrank, and his gaze fell on a certain place. There was a stone tablet with a wing carved on it. Shadowless recognized it at a glance. It was the heavenly thunder wings. There's even an ancestral tablet. Shadowless was very surprised. Then, he saw that the contribution points on the tablet were 10,000. In other words, the contribution points from killing a 4th-grade king could be exchanged for an ancestral tablet here. Seeing this, Shadowless immediately left the place. Obviously, he wanted to tell Zichen this news. Zichen, who was walking through one shop after another, suddenly had a slight change in expression because he saw something that should not have appeared here. What's this? He spoke in advance and successfully attracted everyone's attention. He said, "There's a sword carved on a stone tablet. Is it some kind of powerful sword technique?" Su Mingyao and the others heard him and all saw the thing Zichen was talking about. They naturally recognized it as the Saber Ancestors tablet. At the same time, they also understood what Zichen meant. The divines and the natives didn't get along well. If they saw that Zichen needed this thing, it would be troublesome. Although the price was 100,000 contribution points, it wasn't much for Zichen. The eyes of the originally dispirited native lit up when he heard Zichen's words. He said, "It seems like you have a good eye. There is a nameless saber art recorded here. It requires a fated person to comprehend it." Zichen frowned. "I don't know if this sword technique is powerful, but the price is high. It's 100,000 contribution points." The native smiled. "The sword technique is extraordinary. Of course, the price is higher. If it's only a few hundred contribution points, then the power of the sword technique can be imagined." Chapter 3095. Zichen already had 8 of the Saber Ancestors tablet. He only needed the last one. No one wanted it more than him, even if he had to go bankrupt. However, he could not show it at all. Once he showed his love for it, he might not be able to get it even if he went bankrupt. The most important thing was that Shadowless was back. If he showed his determination to buy the Saber Ancestors tablet, then the other ancestral tablets in the core of the trading site might be swept away by the natives. Therefore, he shook his head and looked a little regretful. He turned around and was about to leave. The others did not say anything because they knew what Zichen meant. This is a powerful saber technique. If you can really understand it, 100,000 contribution points is nothing, said the native. Zichen shook his head and turned around to leave. The native continued to smile and said, "Since you and I are so fated, I'll give you a cheaper price. 90,000 contribution points." Zichen smiled and said, "Forget it. It's just a saber technique. I don't have to buy it. I'll go look at other places. I think we are really fated. How about this? You name a price." "It's rare to meet a fated person," said the native with a smile. 9 to 10,000 contribution points. That's my price. If it's higher, I don't think it's worth it. Of course, if you're willing to let me look at it for a while, maybe I'll give you a higher price. Maybe 90,000 contribution points." Zichen turned around and said. The native's smile froze. He could not make any profit at that price. As for showing it to Zichen, that was even more impossible. This was because too many natives had seen this thing, but none of them could tell what it was. This included many experts of the god race. Considering that it had been here for many years and might be here for many years, the native made a prompt decision and said, "You and I are really fated. I'll give you 10,000 contribution points." When Zichun heard this, he was still a little hesitant. "Why? Are you deliberately teasing me?" The native's smile disappeared, and there was a touch of unhappiness. "Okay." Looking at the native's gloomy face, Zichun had no choice but to take out 10,000 contribution points. With a stroke of the token, a light spot representing 10,000 appeared, and Zichun successfully obtained the Saber Ancestor's tablet. The moment he got the Saber Ancestor's tablet, he released his spiritual thoughts. Then, under the smiling gaze of the indigenous person, his face immediately showed disappointment. Then, he glanced at the native. The other party smiled and said, "Once sold, no refunds." Zichun had no choice but to lead everyone away. Actually, the reason for the 10,000 contribution points was because they listened to Shadowless. This way, without any contribution points to earn, the natives wouldn't have any ideas about the other ancestral monuments. At this point, the 9 pieces of the ancestral saber tablet had finally been gathered. Under such circumstances, Zichun needed to recomprehend the saber will in the ancestral tablet. Shadowless told Zichun everything he saw when he returned to the place where he had to pay for the supreme crystal. "So that's how it is." Zichun smiled coldly. "These natives are really greedy." The awakening altar that was supposed to belong to the gods was now occupied by them. The gods had to work hard to accumulate contribution points in order to exchange for it. At the same time, the exchange opportunity that should have belonged to everyone was blocked. As a result, the gods had to pay the highest amount of contribution points to obtain the cheapest item. "It seems that they are the cancer of this world." Zichun sighed. After a while, Zichun asked, "Are there many more of these ancestral monuments?" Shadowless nodded and said, "Yes, there are a lot." Zichun frowned and said, "It seems that we have to find a way to exchange for it." Shadowless said, "I'm afraid that will be difficult because there are natives guarding it." Then, Zichun told everyone what Shadowless told him. When they heard that 1 contribution point could be exchanged for 2 supreme crystals in the core area of the exchange, their faces showed anger. However, there were many strong people in this world. With Zichun's current strength, he couldn't change the current situation of this world. A few days passed, and Zichun still couldn't come up with a good idea. During this time, he wanted to find Bo Yuan, but he didn't take action. On this day, Bo Yuan came to find Zichun. After entering, Bo Yuan looked at Zichun and asked, "How do you feel?" Zichun smiled bitterly and said, "I don't feel anything." Knowing that Zichun didn't mean what he said, Bo Yuan sighed and said, "This is how the world is. If we can't change it, then we can only try to accept it and acknowledge it." Zichun asked, "I heard from Dick that there are strong people of the gods in this world. Why don't they change? If they show up, this world won't be so cruel, right?" Bo Yuan said, "Those strong people can't casually change the situation of this world because there are more natives." Zichun said, "But they come from many clans and aren't united, right? I don't believe that those natives would dare to fight to the death." Bo Yuan patted Zichun's shoulder and said, "Why can't we?" When Zichun heard this, he was like a deflated balloon. He didn't even have the mood to argue. Indeed, the gods came from different places. They didn't know each other before, so why should they risk themselves for these strangers? The natives have a lot of resources. Some of these resources are the key to the advancement of the gods. So, every god expert is actually an ally of the natives. Because if they don't form an alliance, the chances of them breaking through are very small. Under such circumstances, do you think that after both sides form an alliance, these experts will still attack the natives? Looking at the silent Zichun, Bo Yuan continued, "Not everyone is like you, and not everyone's fighting strength is as strong as yours. So, no matter how dissatisfied you are with the situation of this world, if you can't change it, you should adapt. Because only the fittest survive." Zichun nodded. It seemed that this was the only way. Bo Yuan said, "Just as well. I asked you to come this time because I hope that you can lead a team out again." "There are still natives in the team?" Zichun asked. "Yes, the same one from last time." They were very dissatisfied with our performance last time, so they asked you to go this time. But I'll have Dick go with you, Bo Yuan said. Zichen shook his head and said, there's no need for Dick to come. We'll take care of it ourselves. Bo Yuan frowned and said, Zichun, don't mess around. Don't you know that after coming here, you're not just representing yourself or the dozen of you, but our entire god team? If you kill that native, even if you leave directly, we won't be able to leave. We'll be implicated. My team, including me, will pay a great price for the death of that native. Chapter 3096. If one person caused trouble, the whole team would have to bear the responsibility. This was exactly the method Zichun used to restrain the natives when he was in the lower levels. If a native attacked a Protoss, his family would inevitably be implicated, or even destroyed. Zichun did not know if this was karma, but this rule could undoubtedly restrain many people. Can I leave the team now? Zichun looked at Bo Yuan and asked. Bo Yuan shook his head and said, of course you can, but the natives don't think so. They will always treat you as Iron Sword's person, unless you die. Zichun furrowed his brows. Of course, you can treat this as a threat and as unreasonable. But in this cruel world, it's unreasonable to begin with, Bo Yuan said helplessly. This is the wisdom of the natives. Even if you don't have any restraints, they will force you to have them. Moreover, if you really don't have a force to protect you, this world will be even more dangerous. Okay, but I still don't need Dick to follow me, Zichun said. That's fine. Bo Yuan nodded and said, I came here mainly for this today. You guys leave tomorrow. After Bo Yuan left, Zichun walked him to the door. The others heard the conversation between the two, and now there was anger on their faces. Demon Ape said, why don't we just leave here and fight outside? When we have enough contribution points, we can come back and exchange for them. Even so, we have to deal with tomorrow's matter first. Everyone returned to their rooms. Zichun and Su Mingyao stayed in the living room. Su Mingyao poured Zichun a glass of water and said, do you think it's strange? Zichun nodded. He believed that many of the natives of this world knew what they had done. Now, there were still natives who dared to look for them. Wasn't this purely asking for death? Maybe their original intention was to provoke you. Su Mingyao said, why? Zichun still did not understand. Maybe they need a reason to attack you, Su Mingyao guessed. You don't have to go through so much trouble. Why don't you just send someone to deal with me when I leave the city? Zichun said. Su Mingyao thought for a while and said, this should be the effect of the Iron Sword. Or it could be said that the various forces are restraining and restricting each other. None of them are willing to be the first to break the rules. This was just Su Mengyao's guess. No one knew whether it was true or not. The next day, Zichun led the team to the residence of Wang Yiping. There were already people waiting outside, including Wang Yiping's native. Where's Dick? Seeing that Zichun's group had arrived, but Dick was nowhere to be seen, one of the natives said coldly. Zichun replied, Dick is busy and can't come. I'll take him there. Can you do it? We are the St. Louis family. If something happens to our family, can you bear the consequences? The native said coldly. Zichun chuckled and said, don't worry. If something happens to him, I'll come back immediately and wipe out your family. What did you say? The native's face turned cold. His face was full of anger, but the corners of his eyes were twitching. Zichun smiled and said, I'm telling a joke. You'll be happy after hearing it. After that, he said to Wang Yiping's native, follow me. Remember to follow me closely after we go out. Don't die. Otherwise, too many people will be buried with you. St. Louis family, right? I'll remember. Wang Yiping's native followed. Although there was obvious fear in his eyes, he still said loudly, this time, I want 100,000 contribution points before I come back. The middle-aged man who had spoken earlier stared coldly at Zichun's departing figure until Zichun's figure disappeared. At some point, his back was drenched in cold sweat. This damn guy, he won't mess around, right? The man cursed and turned to leave. Zichun left the city. During this time, he did not slow down and flew into the distance. Hey, you have to protect me. Otherwise, I'll die. Wang Yiping shouted at Zichun from behind. Zichun ignored him and continued to fly ahead of him. Devil Ape and the others naturally did not care about him. Although Su Mingyao and the others hated him, they could not ignore his life and death. Therefore, they walked behind him. After leaving the city, Zichen flew into the distance. Along the way, creatures from alternate dimensions pounced on him. The native had a look of anticipation. A long saber appeared in Zichen's hand and was unsheathed in the next moment. An arc of the saber extended into the distance and swept forward. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Blood splattered. Those creatures from alternate dimensions were immediately killed by Zichen. This rank 1 native was stunned. Obviously, Zichen did not give him any contribution points. The corpse that fell to the ground was decomposed by the light falling from the sky. Zichen's contribution token began to glow. What do you mean by this? Wang Yiping's native looked at Zichen and said loudly, "This time, I have set a goal of 100,000 contribution points. If you can't help me achieve it, you can never go back." Shut up. Devil Ape turned back and stared at this native, his eyes surging with a cruel light. At this moment, 2 rank 2 creatures from alternate dimensions flew over. Devil Ape smashed down with the black rod in his hand. Accompanied by 2 loud bangs, the 2 creatures from alternate dimensions exploded. This Wang Yiping's native still did not get any contribution points. In this way, Zichen went all the way, passing through rank 2, rank 3, and all the way to the rank 4 creatures from alternate dimensions. Next, Zichen rushed forward and killed the enemies. Pooh! Blood splattered. A creature from alternate dimensions was killed. The long saber was unsheathed again. Another rank 4 king from alternate dimensions died. As a native, this rank 1 native was very clear about the contribution points a rank 4 creature from alternate dimensions represented. Therefore, he was very shocked. In this short period of time, Zichen had already obtained tens of thousands of contribution points, and his friends were also incomparably powerful. Seeing this scene, the native's expression changed. At this time, everyone had already dispersed, leaving only him standing there. But in the surroundings, no creatures from alternate dimensions could approach. He said to Zichen in the distance, "Hey, Zichen, right? Is what you said before true? Can you do what you say?" Zichen looked back at him. "You said that if I die, you will go and destroy the St. Luin family. Is this true?" This Wang Yiping's native asked again. Zichen frowned slightly. At this moment, there was no threat on the other's face. Instead, there was anticipation. "Is it true?" The other asked again. Seeing that Zichen did not respond, he continued, "Your combat strength is very strong. So I believe that all of this is true." As soon as he finished speaking, a long sword appeared in his hand. The sword light flashed, and the tip of the sword pierced towards his own heart. Pooh! Chapter 3097. Seeing the actions of the native Wang Yiping, Zichen was stunned. He did not know what was going on. Su Mingyao flashed forward. She raised her hand and shot out a beam of energy to stop the native from dying. It could be seen that the native did not hold back. He really wanted to die. The premise was that Su Mingyao did not attack. Zichen flew towards the native. The native Wang Yiping had blood at the corner of his mouth. His sword was still in his chest. He looked at Zichen and said, "I know all the things you have done. The Protoss and the St. Luin family have indeed cooperated. But this cooperation does not include people like you who have strong combat power and are hostile to us. You may have seen that I am here to die. The first time was the same. I deliberately provoked you, and then deliberately got killed by you. Since you know you are going to die, why did you come?" Zichen asked. The very young Wang Yiping smiled and said, "Because I have no other choice. Instead of deliberately provoking you and getting killed, it is better for me to end my own life. Even if you can't destroy the St. Luin family, you can at least make them restless. I have no other request. I only hope that the St. Luin family will not have peace. Let's go." Zichen waved his hand. A beam of light appeared and fell on the people around him. The next moment, everyone disappeared. A moment later, a group of people appeared in the distance. They seemed to be investigating something, but after coming here, they did not dare to move forward. This was because the number and combat power of the creatures from another dimension had become very strong. The native Wang Yiping's injuries had been completely suppressed. The sword in his heart had been pulled out. Zichen looked at the pale native and said indifferently, "I can see that you don't want to die. Tell me why you did this." The native's expression didn't change after hearing this. There were many ways to commit suicide. His previous choice wasn't the fastest, but he didn't really need to die. He just needed to express his attitude correctly. "My name is Saint Rentoin. I am from the Saint Lewin family." Saint Rentoin paused for a moment and said, "My mother is a god." Zichen's expression changed when he heard that. Similarly, the expressions of Su Mingyao and the others also changed. When they first entered the Divine King's celestial domain, those natives arrogantly declared that if the god race wanted to change their identities, they could only do so if they were lucky enough to give birth to a female god race child. Was Saint Rentoin's mother the kind of person who wanted to change fate? Seeing the slight change in everyone's expression, Saint Renton said, "It's not what you think. If that's the case, there will be no follow-up. My mother and my father got to know each other during a battle. Yes, a team like ours." Saint Rentoin looked at Su Mingyao. Su Mingyao's body moved sideways. Saint Rentoin smiled bitterly. In the beginning, the relationship between the two sides was very bad. Because the natives were very arrogant, they would show disdain for the god race and order them around. My mother beat my father because of that. When they returned, my father complained. At that time, my mother naturally suffered losses. One of the punishments was to continue protecting my father, and the contribution points she would receive would be doubled. On the way back, my father was very complacent. Inevitably, he mocked my mother and that team, so he was beaten again. After returning, he continued to be punished, formed another team, and was beaten again. In this endless cycle, I don't know what happened, but my father and my mother got together. They were in true love. At the beginning, everything was beautiful. No one in the family objected until I was born. Zichen asked in confusion, "Isn't that a good thing?" When they were in the lower class, the natives said that the status of god race women could only change after they had a bloodline. Obviously, a mother's status rose because of her son. But the people of the St. Lewin family did not think so. They felt that my bloodline was not pure. Also, my father only liked my mother, so he refused the family's marriage. Saint Rentoin's eyes showed pain. Later, my mother went out for a trial and had an accident. My father was depressed. He hid in his room and drank all day, not caring about the world. My family's influence was getting weaker and weaker. This time, I became the bait, as expected. Saint Rentoin looked at Zichen and said, "Although everyone told me that you were strong, that I could get a lot of contribution points if I followed you, and that you would not dare to attack me, I knew very well what my role was. No matter how impure my bloodline is, I still have the blood of the St. Lewin family in me. If you kill me, you will leave a mark on your body. As long as you are in this world, the St. Lewin family will find you." Zichen's expression changed slightly. "So, last time I asked for 10,000 contribution points, and this time I asked for 100,000 contribution points. As long as I am alive, they will ask me to try to ask for hundreds of thousands or millions of contribution points until you are completely infuriated." Saint Rentoin said, "My family raised me, so it is reasonable to sacrifice for the family. But I found out that my mother did not die in a battle, but in the scheme of the St. Lewin family. So, I have no good feelings for this family. I want revenge. If my death can really make the St. Lewin family restless, then I am willing to do it." Zichen looked at Saint Rentoin and said, "But you don't want to die." Saint Rentoin nodded and said, "Yes, death is the last choice. Now, I still have a choice." "What choice?" Zichen looked at him. "Cooperation." Saint Rentoin looked at Zichen and said, "I will cooperate with you." Zichen calmly asked, "What kind of cooperation?" "The resources in the core area are unimaginably cheap," Saint Rentoin said. "I can exchange them for you and make you stronger." "What do you want from me?" Zichen asked. "I want the St. Lewin family to be destroyed, or you can support me to be the master of the St. Lewin family." Seeing Zichen's changing expression, Saint Rentoin continued, "I know you can't help me for the time being, but I trust you. so I will exchange resources for you at the core area for free in the early stage. For the same amount of contribution points, you can get at least twice as much in the core area. As soon as he said that, the other people's expressions also changed. They already knew what was in the core area, but they had no way to exchange for it. This seemed to be an opportunity. Zichen thought for a moment and said, I am worried about you. I need to go in myself. Saint Rentoin shook his head and said, Impossible. You Protoss can't go in, because there will be guards there. Even if I take you in through another space, you will be discovered by the natives, unless you are of the 7th rank. Chapter 3098. In terms of transformation, Zichen's method was naturally brilliant. He could even make it so realistic that even his aura was the same. It was just that he couldn't use it to fight. As long as Saint Rentoin was willing to cooperate with him, Zichen would have no problem entering the core area. Fighting wasn't allowed there, so naturally, he wouldn't have to worry about being discovered. The main thing was that both sides had reached a consensus to cooperate. What he needed to do next was to get more contribution points. Because the ancestral tablet was there, it must be something he had to get. He looked at Saint Rentoin and said, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to help you, but I'll try my best to help you. As for the core area, I'll have to go there personally. As for the transformation method, you don't have to worry about it. After saying that, Zichen's appearance changed into Saint Rentoin's appearance. Even his aura was the same. What do you think? His voice was exactly the same as well. Saint Rentoin opened his eyes wide and looked at his other self. He was shocked. It's settled then. Let's go and get some contribution points. As Zichen said that, he glanced at Demon Ape and the others. They nodded and understood what Zichen meant. Next, Su Mengyao and the others would stay here while Zichen and the others would go further away to kill the enemies. Whoosh! He immediately used his teleportation method and left the area. After teleporting a few times and making sure that there weren't any other god tribe or natives around, Zichen chose a place with the most creatures from the alternate universe and released the dark heavenly ants. In this area, the weakest creatures from the alternate universe were 2nd grade while the strongest were 4th grade. There were many of them, and it was very suitable for the dark heavenly ants to participate in the battle. After the dark heavenly ants were released, they joined the battle. Zichen's contribution token shone continuously, and his contribution points began to increase. An endless stream of dark heavenly ants appeared from Zichen's world. It was a black mass. This time, Zichen didn't hesitate and released all the dark heavenly ants. The queen ant needed them to fight. The weak ones would be eliminated while the strong ones would become stronger and slowly advance. In this world, there was no longer any suppression. So there would be more rank 4s and even rank 5s appearing next. Zichen didn't make a move. He sat cross-legged in mid-air and extended his spiritual senses endlessly. Once he discovered any god clan members or natives within the range of his spiritual senses, he would recall the dark heavenly ants. Fortunately, this area was very remote, so there shouldn't be anyone from the god race who would come here to take the risk. It would take a long time just to get there. In front of Zichen, the number on the contribution token floating in front of him was constantly jumping and increasing. His contribution points had long exceeded 1,000,000. This was a rare opportunity, so Zichen wanted to exchange for all the ancestral steals in one go. At the same time, he also wanted to exchange for the God King's soul essences that everyone would use later. These contribution points seemed like a lot, but they were actually not that much. Su Mengyao and the others were guarding Saint Rentoin. Through this conversation, their perception of Saint Rentoin had changed. I don't know how many times I can succeed, so you better prepare more contribution points. Not only are there Supreme Crystal and God King soul essences, but there are also other resources, such as weapons and armors. Saint Rentoin looked at Su Mengyao and said, unlike the armors from the Craftsman clan that are sold outside, the armors inside are said to be made by the rules. There is no error and the quality is very high. Of course, the price is also very high, even higher than the armors sold by the Craftsman clan outside. However, the quality is also many times higher than their armors. That core area doesn't have any restrictions on you. Su Mengyao wanted to ask. Saint Rentoin shook his head and said, no, as long as you're a native, anyone can enter. Su Mingyao secretly remembered this and would tell Zichun when he returned. What is the divine realm like? Saint Rentoin asked curiously. Will it be like here, full of disputes? Su Mingyao said, of course there will be disputes, but there will also be relative fairness. It won't be like here, where there is complete suppression. Saint Rentoin asked curiously, does the divine race have many factions? Su Mingyao shook her head and said, we don't belong to the divine race. We belong to another race. Our race was once suppressed and suppressed by the divine race, and it was the same in the divine realm. However, here, everyone calls us the divine race. In that case, the divine race here is still your enemy? Su Mingyao looked at Saint Rentoin and said, in the outside world, we might be enemies, but here, you are our enemy? Saint Rentoin smiled bitterly and said, I thought the divine realm would be very good. I didn't expect it to be the same everywhere. What if you help us and expose yourself? Su Mingyao asked curiously, if I expose myself, I will definitely die, but I hope you can keep your promise and continue to suppress the Saint Rentoin family, or support my father to become the head of the family. Speaking of his life and death, Saint Rentoin appeared very calm. Su Mingyao looked at Saint Rentoin, who seemed to be very uncomfortable under her stare, so she smiled and said, it's not that pessimistic. When the time comes, I can just deny it. As long as I am not caught on the spot, my chances of survival are not small. As long as I can survive, there will naturally be hope. You are very scheming, Su Mingyao said. Saint Rentoin smiled and said, no, it's your scheming that is too shallow. In this place, if you are not scheming, you will die very miserably. Su Mingyao did not respond to Saint Rentoin, and the atmosphere became silent. After a while, Saint Rentoin continued, the reason why I am cooperating with you is because I heard about you. So I believe that Zichun has also brought the dark heavenly ant to this world. Su Mingyao's expression did not change as she said, he didn't bring it, Saint Rentoin said, but I think he brought it, and all the forces in the city also think he brought it. So he brought it even if he didn't. At this time, those forces are still restraining each other, and they are all maintaining their rationality. You still have a chance. Once they lose their rationality, you will be in great danger. So, even if you succeed this time, you will not have many chances to go to the core area to exchange. In my opinion, it's best that you go only once. The next time you come out, it will be when you leave with the resources. If you don't leave, you will be in great danger. Su Mingyao glanced at Saint Rentoin again. The other party's behavior last time was very hateful and unreasonable, but she did not expect him to be so meticulous. If all the natives here were like him, it would be troublesome. 7 days later, Zichun and the others returned. Chapter 3099. Zichun transferred 100,000 contribution points to Saint Rentoin and took him back. During this time, Su Mingyao told him everything that Saint Rentoin said a few days ago. Zichun listened in silence. When we go back, we still have to pretend that we don't get along. We can't leave any traces behind. There may only be one chance. I'll go to the trading castle the next day. You can find me, but we can't communicate at all. Before they left, Saint Rentoin said, other than that, I'll find a way to ask for more contribution points from the family after the trading. You can follow me out of the city and leave right away. You can come back when you're strong enough to do what you're supposed to do. Zichun nodded and said, don't worry. We'll fulfill our promise since we've promised you. They didn't communicate with each other for the rest of the journey until they returned to the city. Outside of the Saint Rentoin family, Zichun saw the middle-aged man again. When he saw Zichun, he said, not bad. You were fast this time, but you're still some distance away from my expectations. Saint Rentoin, who had walked behind the middle-aged man, said, I'll ask for 200,000 contribution points next time. The middle-aged man smiled faintly and said, what's 200,000? 500,000 contribution points. Zichun glanced at him and said coldly, do as you wish. After that, he turned around and left. It's still you guys next time. You won't dare to refuse, and you can't refuse. The middle-aged man smiled proudly. Let's wait and see. Zichun's voice was still cold. What happened in the past few days? After Zichen left, the middle-aged man turned around and asked Saint Rentoine. Saint Rentoine said angrily, I didn't do anything, and they didn't protect me. They only knew how to kill. However, no creature from the alternate time and space could approach me. The middle-aged man looked at Saint Rentoine and observed his every change of expression. He didn't say anything. In the end, Saint Rentoine said, They're strong, but they don't dare to kill me. Are you sure? Asked the middle-aged man. Saint Rentoine nodded and said, I'm sure, because they're unfamiliar with this place and have nowhere to go. They're also worried about each other. It's unlikely that they'll put themselves in danger. That's because it's not time yet. The middle-aged man sneered. What about the contribution? Saint Rentoine asked. Of course it's for the clan. Don't tell me you want to keep it for yourself. Do you need us to do anything? After returning to their residence, Su Mingyao asked Zichen. Zichen shook his head. No need. You just need to check the items in the trading castle. If nothing unexpected happens, I will exchange for all the ancestral tablets. The next day, Zichen brought everyone into the exchange castle as promised. This time, they naturally couldn't be like last time, where they just came here to take a look. They needed to really exchange for something, otherwise, they would be exposed. Because no fighting was allowed, this place was sufficiently safe. Thus, after arriving, everyone moved separately. Zichen walked and stopped, passing by some shops. About an hour later, Zichen noticed Saint Rentoine walking in, so he pretended to walk forward casually. When he brushed past Saint Rentoine, a light spot landed on him. This light disappeared in a flash. If one didn't pay attention to this side, they wouldn't have noticed it at all. After that, Zichen went to another place, while Saint Rentoine continued to walk forward. What's going on? He sent his divine telekinesis into the light spot that he had just put away and transmitted his voice to it. That's my clone. You go straight to the core area. Zichen's voice rang out in Saint Rentoine's mind. As a native, Saint Rentoine naturally wouldn't stop at this place. He walked straight to the core area and passed through the light gate smoothly. The core area was a huge ball of light. At this moment, there were other natives choosing things here. Saint Rentoine walked forward. Along the way, a light flashed on him, almost enveloping him. Some natives looked this way and saw that the light came from a contribution token. No one cared that the token would glow. Thus, they continued to look at the things they wanted. The light dimmed. Zichen had turned into Saint Rentoine and put him away. He started to look at the things that could be exchanged. The first thing he saw was an ancestral tablet that was worth 10,000 contribution points. Zichen, there's one here too. Shadowless's voice rang out. He was looking for other ancestral tablets for Zichen. As Shadowless's voice rang out, Zichen memorized the locations of these ancestral tablets one by one. Their prices were fixed. They had been here for many years, and no one had ever asked about them. This was because all the natives here knew that these things were useless. Zichen looked around. His expression didn't change at all, but in fact, his heart was already in turmoil. They were all here. All the ancestral tablets they lacked were here. Although he didn't know what was going on, Zichen was sure that this was an excellent thing. As long as he got all the ancestral tablets here, he would have all the 9 extreme weapons ancestral tablets. At this moment, Zichen still didn't make a move. Instead, he continued to look around. He wanted to exchange for other things, such as the Godly King's soul essence. He didn't even think about exchanging for the Supreme Crystal. This was because he had a lot of contribution points. These points were enough for him to refine the Godly King's soul essence all day long. The weapons might be useless to everyone, but these armors are. Shadowless pointed forward and said, Those women's light armors can all be taken. Although the price is a bit high. Not just high, it was ridiculously high. Each one was worth at least 500,000 contribution points, equivalent to 50 ancestral tablets. In Zichen's eyes, each of these ancestral tablets was worth 500,000 or even 5 million. This was because he needed them. He had to get them. Weapons were very expensive. They could give up on this because they might not be suitable for them. However, these armors were very suitable for everyone. They could save their lives at a critical moment. How do I exchange for them? Zichen sent a message to Saint Rentoine. Just put your hand on it, and use your mind to get what you want. The contribution points will be deducted by yourself. For example, if you want to exchange for the Supreme Crystal, just use your spiritual sense to say the number. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have enough contribution points. After understanding the steps, Zichun planned to exchange for the things that he already had his eyes on. Zichun, there's someone from the Protoss here. Shadowless's voice sounded. Why would there be someone from the Protoss here? Zichun was very surprised, so he pretended to walk to the side casually. Protoss powerhouses can indeed come here, but the prerequisite is that they have to be rank 7. Hearing Saint Rentoin's words, Zichun's expression changed slightly. He inadvertently looked toward the Protoss. It was a middle-aged man. He was very burly and wore a set of armor. Chapter 3100. As if sensing Zichun's gaze, the rank 7 god glanced at Zichun with a glint in his eyes. Sensing the change in the other party's gaze, Zichun's heart skipped a beat and he walked in another direction. Interesting. The God Clan member, who might be a rank 7 God Clan member, looked at Zichun, who was walking to the side, with a smile on his face. He seemed to have exchanged for what he wanted and turned to leave. Zichun heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he came to the place where he had been and quickly placed his hand in front of him. He touched a barrier. The barrier lit up and many patterns appeared on it. At the same time, many images appeared before Zichun's eyes. Zichun's spiritual senses moved and the resources representing the God King's spirit essence lit up. Zichun silently counted to 1,000 and the number of God King's spirit essence increased to 1,000. All of this was controlled by the rules. It was very convenient. Therefore, Zichun's spiritual senses immediately extended and lit up all the ancestral monuments. At the same time, he also lit up the armor that he had taken a fancy to previously. At the moment, the amount of contribution points that Zichun needed to pay was as high as millions, and even close to 10 million. Of course, the armor accounted for most of the contribution points. Zichun's contribution points had long exceeded 10 million. Therefore, he did not hesitate to exchange all the remaining palaces for the God King's spirit essence. With the final confirmation of his spiritual senses, Zichun's contribution token exploded with a strong light. At the same time, the contribution points disappeared rapidly. At the same time, many light spots flew to Zichun's side and were collected by Zichun. Looking at the ancestral monuments, Zichun felt very secure. This scene attracted the attention of the surrounding natives. They all cast surprised gazes in this direction. After seeing the things in the light clusters, their faces were filled with curiosity. However, they did not care. This was because many of the indigenous people's shops would exchange for a lot of resources in one go when they came here to make purchases. They mistakenly thought that Zichun was a manager of the shops. It's just that they found it strange that so many high-quality armors were exchanged at once. This was because ordinary divines couldn't afford to exchange for such armors. Those who had the ability to do so were already qualified to enter this place. Saint Rentoin, it's you. At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. An indigenous person walked over with a smirk on his face. Where did you get the contribution points to exchange for so many things at once? Zichun didn't know who this person was, so he naturally ignored him. The other party said again, I heard that you recently got a good job, but you don't have to make so many contributions, do you? Did the St. Lewin family arrange for you to manage the shops here? But the things you bought don't seem to be of any use. Don't expect those stupid gods to be able to afford them. This kind of thing shouldn't need you, Rosa, to care about, right? Zichun, who had transformed into Saint Rentoin, said plainly. He was communicating with the real Saint Rentoin through telepathy. He was still collecting items because he had exchanged too many resources. Interesting. But you're suddenly exchanging for these useless things. Did you discover their value? And there are so many armors. Did the St. Lewin family do something big again? The indigenous person named Rosa said again, looking at Zichun suspiciously. Zichun still ignored him. Saint Rentoin, you don't seem to be normal. Rosa tilted his head and looked at Zichun. At this time, Zichun was very nervous. He couldn't be bothered with the other party. His eyes were fixed in front of him. It wasn't until he collected the last ancestral steel that he breathed a sigh of relief. Chi, do I know you that well? After collecting all the resources, Zichen glanced at the other party and turned to leave. You? Rosa stood there, looking at Zichen's back as he left. His expression gradually became cold. When Zichen left, his body emitted a light. It was a contribution token. However, he had used up all his contribution points. He exchanged all the remaining points for the God King's soul essence. Heavenbreaker once said that if he wanted to make a move, he would need 8 or 10 pieces of God King's soul essence. The number of God King's soul essence that Zichen had was enough for Heavenbreaker to make a move many times. After transforming with Saint Rentoin again, Saint Rentoin walked out. He left the trading castle and walked toward the city. He swept past a corner, and a ray of light disappeared beside him. Not long after, his clone, Su Mingyao, and the others passed by. The ray of light that Zichen was hiding merged with his clone. Everyone didn't show any strange behavior and walked toward their residence. How was it? After returning to their residence, Su Mingyao asked Zichen. Zichen nodded and revealed an excited smile. They're all here. Next, he took out the remaining sword ancestor steel and gave it to Wang Xian'er. The spear ancestor steel was given to Lei Ting. As for the shield ancestor steel and ancestor steel, he could only keep them since Tyrant and Zhang Haoyan weren't around. Everything is here. Shall we leave now? Devil Ape asked. Did you meet anyone else? Su Mengyao asked. I met someone, but he's not familiar with Saint Rentoin. There shouldn't be any problem. Zichen thought for a while and said, Now, we're definitely being watched closely by many forces. If we leave now, it'll arouse suspicion. Let's wait for 2 days. If the situation gets tense, we'll leave immediately. Of course, no one had any objections. After an hour, Zichen heard a commotion coming from outside. Hearing this, Zichen's expression changed slightly. He released his spiritual thoughts. After seeing what was happening outside, his expression changed drastically. Devil Ape and the others noticed the abnormality and appeared in front of Zichen one after another. You guys hide for a while. Zichen opened his world and put everyone away. At the same time, his body flashed and many doppelgangers appeared. These doppelgangers took on the appearance of others and stayed where they were. Zichen, get out here. A cold voice came from outside the door. The door opened and Zichen walked out. Looking at these unfamiliar natives, he said coldly, Do you want to die? I think you're the one who wants to die. Tell me, are you in cahoots with Saint Rentoin? Zichen narrowed his eyes. Do you want to die? The other party sneered. You still won't admit it? Look, we've brought him here, and he's confessed everything. The crowd parted and Saint Rentoin was carried forward. At this moment, his face was full of blood. Obviously, he had suffered a lot. Looking at Saint Rentoin, Zichen frowned and said, Are you guys crazy? Why did you come here after beating him up? Chapter 3101. You're talking about that place. I did go there today. Zichen looked up at the castle in the sky. At this time, many divine generals had gathered in the distance. Of course, they were here to watch the show. No one dared to interfere with the indigenous people's affairs. You don't have to make jokes in front of us. We've already found out that you colluded with Saint Rentoin and went to the core trading place to exchange for a large number of God King's soul essences, defensive armor, and many ancient tablets passed down from ancient times. The one who spoke was a young man. He was only a level 3, but his attitude towards Zichen was very rude. The other Protoss around were extremely shocked when they heard that. The core trading place was their dream. It was said that there were many resources there, and they were extremely cheap. I don't know what you're talking about, Zichen said lightly. Of course, he would not admit it. Besides, he did not believe that Saint Rentoin would admit it. Don't try to fool me. Hand over the things now, and I'll let bygones be bygones. The other party said coldly. Zichen looked at the Wang Sampin and said, You're just a level 3. Where did you get the courage to talk to me like that? He glanced around. Those who followed him were also level 3 and level 4. Of course, he would not take them seriously. Saint Rentoin was injured and did not say a word at the moment. You're courting death. The Wang Sanpin's eyes flashed coldly. The other indigenous people around spread out and surrounded Zichun. Zichun frowned and looked at the other party. He said, "Do you really want to die? You're the one courting death." As soon as the Wang Sanpin finished speaking, he rushed towards Zichun. The light of energy surged on his body, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. A sharp blade slashed towards Zichun's head. Exclamations rose again. All the Protoss were surprised that the other party dared to attack. Moreover, it was a level 3 versus a level 4. Zichun attacked. Golden light surged in front of him. Wang Sanpin, who was full of murderous intent, was frightened. He blocked with his weapon. With a loud bang, the weapon broke. The Wang Sanpin coughed up blood and flew backward. "How dare you attack in the city? You're courting death." Wang Sanpin, who was sent flying, shouted loudly. At the same time, the indigenous people who had surrounded Zichun were only at level 3 or 4. Instead of attacking, they all retreated. He retreated again and again until he was out of the battlefield. The gods in the distance were dumbfounded. They did not understand what these natives were doing. Right at this moment, a cold and fierce voice resounded. "You dare make a move in the city? You're courting death." A person flew over from afar. His body surged with the aura of a rank 5. He held a long saber tightly in his hand and slashed forward. The saber radiance shot out from the tip of the saber, drawing an arc as it slashed towards Zichun. Zichun snorted coldly. He clenched his right fist and punched out. A dazzling golden light shone on his fist, as if he was holding a golden sun. Boom! The energy trembled, and the saber radiance shattered. Powerful shockwaves spread out in all directions. The battle here attracted the attention of many Protoss. It was the first time they dared to fight in the city. After shattering the saber light with one punch, Zichun's figure soared into the sky and then rushed toward the rank 5. The rank 5's eyes shone with a cold light. He slashed again. The saber radiance slashed down, but it only destroyed an afterimage. In the next moment, a huge force landed on his body and sent him flying. Zichun was in the realm of a rank 4 king. In the hundreds of years at the lower level, not only did he comprehend the saber will to the rank 4 level, but he also comprehended the extreme speed to the same level. The rank 5's body flew backward. In his cold eyes, there was a touch of horror. Swish! Right at this moment, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that Zichun had come to his side again. What a fast speed! His expression changed. He forcibly steadied his body. Then, he turned the blade in his hand and slashed horizontally at Zichun. The saber radiance slashed past. The sound of air breaking rang out. It was another afterimage. Here. Zichun came behind the rank 5 again and punched out. Energy roared. The rank 5 coughed up blood and flew out. In the distance, the Protoss looked ahead in shock. A mere rank 4 could deal with a rank 5 so easily. Bang! Bang! The sound of energy vibrations kept ringing. The rank 5 screamed again and again. He was constantly sent flying by Zichun. Saint Rentoin looked at this scene. His expression was also extremely shocked. It was one thing to guess that Zichun was powerful. It was another thing to actually see it. "What are you waiting for? Come out and kill me." The rank 5, who was sent flying again and again, shouted angrily. In other places, the aura of a rank 5 appeared again. This rank 5, who had been suppressed by Zichun, sneered at this moment. He thought that he could suppress Zichun like this. Little did he know that such an action would lead him to death. At first, Zichun was still considering whether to kill or not. He was still hesitating. Now that he saw the others, he made up his mind. With the last punch, the light of thunder burst out and poured into the rank 5's body. The rank 5 coughed up blood and never stood up again. He was dead. In the distance, there were constant cries of alarm. A rank 5 was killed. Naturally, this matter would not end well. Zichun stood indifferently. Aborigines appeared around him. He did not know if they had discussed it beforehand. Those who came were all rank 5s. There were 4 rank 5s. Looking at these 4 approaching Aborigines, Zichun's expression was turning cold little by little. "Since you're courting death, don't blame me for being rude." A Chongdao appeared in his hand. A powerful aura erupted from his body. A rank 4 killing a rank 5 was like a rank 1 killing a rank 2. It was even easier than that, because he had awakened his power. Under the circumstances where he could use the heaven-defying rule power, he did not care about opponents who were only 1 level higher. He dashed forward, disappeared, flashed, and slashed. Buzz. The void trembled. The saber light stretched far away like a waterfall. Zichen's figure was indifferently in the air. In front of him, the body of a rank 5 was separated. Out of 4 rank 5s, 1 was killed in an instant. The other 3 rank 5s trembled in their hearts. "You're courting death." Zichen's voice was cold. His body was surging with murderous intent. Everyone felt a penetrating chill. They could not help but shudder. Golden light shone. Zichen dashed forward and faced other opponents again. "Stop!" A loud shout came from afar. A stronger aura emerged. It was a rank 6. Zichen did not know this rank 6. Naturally, this person was an enemy. He did not stop. The murderous intent on his body grew stronger. As if teleporting, he came in front of a rank 5 in an instant. The saber light continued to slash. The light of thunder shone in the sky. A powerful aura emerged. The light flashed 3 times in a row. Blood splattered in the air like a bloody rain. 3 rank 5 aborigines died a violent death one after another. Chapter 3102. Saint Rentoin knew what Zichen had done in the lower levels. He knew that he was very strong. Among those of the same rank, there was almost no one who could match him. However, seeing Zichen kill the enemy today, only then did he know how strong Zichen was. He could even kill a rank 5. Moreover, looking at the current situation, Zichen killing a rank 5 was a complete massacre. As such, it would be useless no matter how many rank 5 came. Hence, a rank 6 appeared. However, before the rank 6 reached the scene, the battle was already over. "You're courting death," the rank 6 shouted angrily, striking a blow at Zichen. Boom! Intense energy collided, forming waves that scattered everywhere. This rank 6's blow was stopped by someone. It was Bo Yuan. Amidst the energy turbulence, his robes flapped loudly. "Carmen, what are you doing?" The rank 6 named Carmen stared coldly at Bo Yuan, saying angrily, "Open your eyes wide. Can't you see what's happening? This guy is killing people in the city, breaking the rules. I have to kill him." "Zichen won't kill people for no reason." "Of course, there's a reason for this," Bo Yuan said. "There's a reason for killing people?" Carmen's expression was cold. Zichen listened to the conversation between the two in front of him, his expression unchanged. Everything was based on strength. Now, he did not have strong strength, and neither did Bo Yuan. Even if there was a reason, it would become unreasonable. Moreover, everyone knew that all of this only required a single reason. "Bo Yuan, are you really going to stop me?" Carmen stared at Bo Yuan. "He's a member of Iron Sword. If anything happens, we'll take responsibility," Bo Yuan said in a low voice. "You're really not going to let me?" The coldness in Carmen's eyes grew. "Unless you can kill me," Bo Yuan said indifferently. Carmen smiled mockingly. "Die." A fierce light appeared from afar, heading straight for Zichen. Zichen unsheathed the Changdao in his hand, slashing toward the sky. The 2 attacks met. Zichen's body flew backward. Another person appeared. This person was a rank 6. "Saint Rentoin, you want to fight too?" Bo Yuan turned around, shouting at the second rank 6. "He killed people in the city. I can't stand it, of course. I have to deal with it. Bo Yuan, are you trying to stop me?" The rank 6 named Saint Lengas glanced at Carmen and said indifferently, "Then you have to get past Carmen first." With that, he charged towards Zichen with his sword in hand. At the same time, the rank 6 named Kamen charged toward Bo Yuan. Looking at the charging St. Lawrence, Zichen unsheathed his long saber, and lightning illuminated the sky. Whoosh! He rushed forward and drew his saber. Clang! St. Lawrence blocked the attack with his sword and mocked disdainfully. "A mere 4th stage wants to deal with a 6th stage?" As the energy collided, Zichen's body was pushed back. Whoosh! Zichen's body came to a halt as he retreated, and the afterimage he left behind was shattered by the shockwaves in all directions. St. Lenges slightly frowned. A beam of light appeared beside him. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he slashed with his sword. The sword light streaked across the sky and destroyed a shadow. Looking at the disappearing afterimage in front of him, St. Lenges' expression didn't change as he slashed again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He slashed several times in succession, destroying several afterimages. Zichun didn't find a chance to attack, and St. Lenges couldn't attack Zichun when he appeared. His body retreated and appeared in the distance. Not far away, the battle between Bo Yuan and Carmen erupted. Naturally, it was more intense than here, and the sound of explosions rang out continuously. Is that all you've got? St. Lenges looked at Zichun mockingly. Lightning flashed on Zichun's body as he activated his thunder physique. Since he couldn't kill him with extreme speed, then he would fight him with his most powerful strength. He handed his long saber to his left hand and clenched his right hand into a fist as he charged forward. The power of thunder physique gathered toward his fist, and an extremely powerful aura was released. Feeling the power contained in Zichun's fist, St. Lenges smiled coldly and activated an even stronger power on his long sword. The long sword slashed down, releasing a sharp aura. Zichun punched out and shouted, "Thunder explosion!" The fist collided with the long sword, and the power of thunder exploded instantly, forming a terrifying wave that swept across St. Lenges. Zichun retreated, and there were a few more sword marks on his robe. The combat strength of a 6th rank was indeed powerful. He felt the pain from his skin, and the sword intent invaded his body through the wounds. The power of thunder flowed on the surface of his body, and the spirits that tried to destroy his vitality were instantly destroyed. The energy in front of him was turbulent, and St. Lenges walked out. Compared to Zichun, he was in a much more sorry state. His robe was tattered, and there were still remnants of the power of thunder on his body. When the Protoss and natives in the distance saw this scene, they were extremely shocked. Zichun was only a 4th rank, but he could make a 6th rank so miserable. "I'm going to kill you." The 6th rank St. Lenges roared and rushed towards Zichun. Zichun rushed forward with his saber and slashed down. Clang! The two of them fought, and powerful auras kept surging. Zichun was fighting against a 6th rank alone, and he was not at a disadvantage at all. After all, Zichun was only a 4th rank. If he broke through to the 5th rank, wouldn't he be able to crush a 6th rank? Once he reached the 6th rank, wouldn't he be able to crush a 7th rank? Looking at the two of them fighting, everyone was extremely shocked. As for St. Lenges, he was extremely excited. He was caught earlier, so he naturally would not admit it. Because if he did not admit it, he still had a chance to live. If he admitted it, he would only die. Then, they tricked Zichun with words, and Zichun did not fall for it, which made him feel relieved. Fortunately, their purpose was not to investigate this matter. Instead, it was to fight. Bo Yuan and Carmen had not decided the winner yet, because both of them were holding back, just to restrain each other. During this time, Bo Yuan transmitted his voice to Zichun. "Find a way to leave. We may not be able to protect you." Slash. A loud shout came from the front, and a powerful aura burst out from St. Lenges' long sword. At the same time, Zichun also made a strong move, and his strongest saber slashed down. When the saber fell, a heavy aura emerged, and 4 rays of light appeared on the saber light. That was the aura released by the ancestral steels that had merged into it. With a roar, Zichun retreated. In front of him, the 6th rank St. Lenges had a deep wound on his chest, and the power of thunder was raging in the wound. Looking at the wound on his chest, St. Lenges' eyes became violent. At this moment, the void trembled, and the saber ancestor steels appeared one after another, enveloping the surroundings. At the same time, the saber ancestor steels that had merged into Zichun's saber reappeared. 9 saber ancestor steels occupied 9 positions, forming a saber realm. This was a complete saber realm. Zichun, who was in the realm, felt the excitement from the saber, and the long saber in his hand trembled with excitement. Slash! Zichun shouted, and the long saber in his hand slashed down instantly. The saber light, enhanced by the saber realm, slashed toward the 6th rank St. Lingus like a waterfall. Chapter 3103. The saber domain was transparent, so everyone could see what was happening in the domain. Their expressions changed again when they saw that the 6th rank St. Lingus chose to defend. Golden light was released from the domain, and the crowd watching the battle in the distance was so dazzling that they subconsciously closed their eyes. The intense golden light burst out, making it impossible to see what was happening in the field. The battle between Bo Yuan and Carmen stopped, and they both turned their heads and looked at this side. The saber domain didn't disappear, and the golden light in it gradually dissipated. When the golden light disappeared and they could finally see what was happening in the domain, there was an uproar immediately. There was only one person standing in the saber domain at this moment, and it was Zichun. As for the 6th rank king, St. Lingus, he had fallen down. His body was motionless, and he was obviously dead. A 4th rank had killed a 6th rank. How was this possible? No one dared to believe this scene, even if they saw it with their own eyes. St. Lingus, whose face was covered in blood and injured, became more and more excited. The stronger Zichun was, the greater his chances of success in the future. According to the fact that Zichun could kill a 6th rank when he was only a 4th rank, as long as Zichun advanced again, he might be able to threaten a 7th rank. After all, a 7th rank was the strongest in this world. Bo Yuan's eyes were also full of surprise. He himself was a 6th rank, and he didn't expect Zichun to be able to kill an expert of this level who was 2 ranks higher. Carmen said in a deep voice, "At this point, what are you waiting for?" As his voice fell, more light appeared in the surroundings. 6th rank. All of them were 6th rank. It was no longer 1 or 2, but more than 10. These 6th rank auras were all different. Some were holding weapons, and some were followed by soul beasts. Obviously, they were from different families. Seeing this scene, Zichun knew that these natives were in cahoots. "Break it!" A 6th rank quickly stepped forward, holding a heavy hammer in his hand. The hammer smashed down like a mountain, hitting the saber domain. With a loud bang, the saber domain collapsed, and the 9 saber ancestor steels disappeared. Zichun's figure appeared. He looked at the 6th rank craftsman and said, "The craftsman clan's Kong family?" The 6th rank cultivator with the giant hammer said coldly, "What? Do you still want to talk about your relationship with us?" Zichun smiled coldly and said, "I don't have any friendship with you. Right now, I just want to make sure that it's your Kong clan. This way, when I take my revenge, I won't find the wrong target." What an arrogant brat. The other party snorted coldly and waved the giant hammer in his hand again, smashing it towards Zichun. As the hammer fell, the power of the domain also suppressed Zichun. Zichun's expression didn't change. Lightning flashed around his body, directly dispersing the pressure. At the same time, he clenched his fist and attacked. Thunder explosion. Boom. The light of the fist met the heavy hammer. At the moment when the two sides collided, thunder exploded. Zichun slid backward. The rank 6 from the Kong tribe flew backward and stood side by side with the other rank 6. Both sides were only probing each other, and they did not fight to the death. St. Lawrence's body was still there. Naturally, they wouldn't underestimate Zichun. If they were to attack next, all of them would attack together. After stabilizing himself, Zichun looked at the rank 6 aborigines and said, "Is Hobbs' force here?" "Yes." A rank 6 said coldly. "What about the Money Clan?" Zichun asked again. "Of course, we won't let you go." Another rank 6 said. Zichun smiled faintly and said, "The 3 lower-level forces of the 3 royal clans are all here, including the St. Lawrence clan. Tell me the names of the others. Every wrong has its perpetrator. Every debt has its debtor. I want to know who the enemy is." "Humph. What's the harm in telling you?" A cold snort sounded. "Perry clan, Wayne clan, Connor clan, Jay clan." Voices sounded one after another. As expected, there were more than 10 rank 6 here, representing more than 10 clans. He had never heard of some of the clans, but he was familiar with some of them, such as the Perry clan. Moreover, Zichun could see that these clans were here not because the other clans were friendly to him, but because these clans were the first-tier clans in this city. Other than them, no other clans were qualified to attack him this time. Of course, if they killed him, the other clans wouldn't be able to touch the benefits they obtained. The Kong clan rank 6 who attacked earlier looked at Zichun and said coldly, "If you know what's good for you, hand over the things you shouldn't have and we'll leave you with a complete corpse. Not only you, but also your friends will have a complete corpse." "What things?" Zichun looked at him and smiled mockingly. "Everything." They had all seen how St. Lingus had died. Those ancient steels that had been placed in the core trading place for a long time had not been discovered by anyone for many years. They didn't expect Zichun to show such a powerful side. Therefore, these ancient steels had to be left behind. However, their ultimate goal was still the dark heavenly ant and the final ant monarch. They were already aware of what had happened in the lower levels. The reason Zichun was able to suppress the natives in the lower levels was naturally because he controlled the dark heavenly ant. In this world, contribution points were the most important. If one obtained the dark heavenly ant, the contribution points one would obtain would be innumerable. This was really crucial for the development of one's force. This could be seen from the fact that Zichun was able to obtain over 10 million contribution points every time he left the city, even though he did not stay for long each time. After seeing Zichun use the ancient steels to fight, they had already concluded that the person who had gone to the core area to exchange for resources was Zichun. After all, other than Zichun, no one else in this world would want those useless things. As for whether he had colluded with St. Lawrence, no one was sure for the time being. Zichun looked at the Kong clan native and smiled faintly. "What if I don't hand it over? Then die." He dashed towards Zichun. At the same time, the others moved as well. After witnessing Zichun's strength, they naturally wanted to attack him together. Buzz. Looking at the crowd rushing towards him, the Saber Ancestor's steel that had disappeared earlier appeared again. It formed a Saber realm and trapped everyone in it. "Everyone, let's join forces. He can't do anything to us," the rank 6 from the Kong clan said in a deep voice. Indeed, more than a dozen rank 6 experts joined forces to deal with a rank 4 expert. Even if the rank 4 expert's combat strength was unexpectedly strong, he could not do anything to them. If more than a dozen of them could not kill Zichun together, who could do anything to him? Hearing their voices, Zichun's expression did not change. 2 rays of light flew out from his body and turned into yin and yang doppelgangers. Light flew out from the yin and yang doppelgangers and merged in front of them to form yin and yang thunder lotuses. These thunder lotuses were only the size of a palm, but the speed of their formation was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, there were hundreds of them. Chapter 3104. In the Saber domain, hundreds of thunder lotuses appeared in an instant. These thunder lotuses were about the size of a palm. After they appeared, they flew toward the rank SIXS in front. These rank SIXS had never seen such an attack. In their divine telekinesis perception, although these 2-colored lotuses were not powerful, there were too many of them. Naturally, it was still very troublesome. Moreover, looking behind them, the yin-yang doppelganger was like a string of cannons, constantly releasing light. In just a breath, there were hundreds more thunder lotuses. In the blink of an eye, this Saber domain, which was not very big, had thousands of thunder lotuses. These thunder lotuses were like bright lamps, flying forward. The rank SIXS looked at each other and saw the vigilance in each other's eyes. They did not rush forward rashly and took the initiative to form a defense. They wanted to watch first. At this moment, the thunder lotuses approached and then exploded. Boom, boom, boom. Countless roars sounded in the Saber domain. Dazzling strong light erupted again. But this time it was not saber light, but exploding thunder lotuses. The crowd could not hear the sound, but seeing the power of the thunder lotuses exploding, looking at the raging yin and yang energy, they could already feel the horror of this attack. Bo Yuan and Carmen no longer fought. The two of them only formed a distraction and looked at the battlefield at the same time. Yin and yang energy raged wildly. Dazzling strong light erupted. They could not see the situation in the domain. After a moment, the energy dissipated. They saw that the rank sects were all standing there unscathed. This made them sigh in relief. Obviously, Zichen alone could not do anything to a group of people. In the saber domain, after the raging energy dissipated, these rank thecks, shining with strong light, moved forward again. At this moment, they felt an even stronger aura coming from the front. In front of Zichun, there was a thunder lotus floating. This time, there was only one thunder lotus. It no longer emitted the bright yin and yang light, but a very dark light. It had faintly turned black. Wave after wave of ripples spread out in all directions. Even the space within the domain became distorted. Sensing this fluctuation, all the rank XS expressions changed greatly. Obviously, the power of this Thunder Lotus was more powerful and terrifying than the previous thousands of Thunder Lotuses. Zichun stared at the rank XS in front of him. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. With a thought, the Yin and Yang Thunder Lotus flew forward. Wong. The Yin-Yang Lightning Lotus trembled as it continued to expand. The surrounding space began to distort madly. Sensing the fluctuation, those Grade 6 experts were horrified. The next moment, some Grade 6 experts turned around and attacked the barrier of the Saber domain. When the powerful attacks landed on the barrier, they only caused countless ripples. They were unable to break through. Damn it, how did this happen? A rank 6 scolded angrily. Earlier, the Kong family's attack had broken the domain. Why couldn't they break it now? With a thought, he controlled the Soul Beast to attack the Thunder Lotus. At that moment, the Yin-Yang Lightning Lotus had already expanded to the size of a mountain. The ripples that it constantly released prevented the Soul Beasts from approaching it. In fact, under the impact of the ripples, the Soul Beasts were forced to retreat instead of advancing. The Yin-Yang Thunder Lotus was too terrifying. These people felt a strong threat. Therefore, more rank 6 turned around and attacked the barrier of the domain. The powerful attack landed on the barrier, forming a terrifying might, but it still broke through the blade domain. At this moment, the Yin-Yang Lightning Lotus that was as large as a mountain arrived and exploded with a loud bang. After the explosion, the Yin-Yang Lightning Lotus completely covered the blade domain. The powerful energy wreaked havoc, forming an indiscriminate attack. Zichen had already retreated to the edge of the domain. His thunder body surged and formed a defense. He looked ahead with an extremely cold expression. As a rank 4, he had reawakened the power of rules. After using the power of Yin and Yang, his combat strength naturally became extremely powerful. However, he knew very well that it was impossible to kill more than a dozen rank 6 experts with this move. Therefore, when the energy was wreaking havoc, he, who was near the edge of the domain, looked up at the sky. There was a ray of light. The ray of light was like a seed that suddenly became bright. The seed sprouted, grew, and turned into a flower bud. Then, the flower bud bloomed and turned into a 2-colored lotus. Unlike the Yin-Yang Lightning Lotus from before, this 2-colored lotus was formed by the combination of Yin and Yang energy. It grew on its own and needed to rely on Zichen's own immense power to maintain it. At this moment, the 2-colored lotus was still in the void. The ripples that appeared vaguely had the intention of tearing the space apart. Even Zichen's blade domain had become unstable at this moment. With the improvement of his realm, after using the 2-colored lotus, the power formed by it became more and more terrifying. In the blade domain, the energy of the Yin-Yang Lightning Lotus had just dissipated. The figures of more than a dozen rank 6 experts appeared. As Zichun had expected, they were very embarrassed. However, their lives were not in danger. At the same time, after being attacked continuously, their faces revealed anger. However, in the next moment, this anger was directly replaced by panic, because another attack had appeared. This time, it was a lotus entwined with 2-colored light. It was vivid and lifelike, unlike the previous one, which was a forced fusion. Moreover, the aura released by this 2-colored lotus was increasingly terrifying. It made them feel the threat of death. Whoosh! The lotus began to rotate. A powerful aura circulated. During this time, the rotating lotus petals streaked across the sky, bringing up yellow ribbons. Before the energy of the 2-colored lotus exploded, Zichen directly withdrew from the blade domain. At the same time, in his world, there was a powerful force, which converged into the 9 saber ancestor steels. The saber ancestor steels released a strong light. The blade domain, which had been unstable because of the appearance of the 2-colored lotus, was stabilized again with the infusion of the world force. If the 9 saber ancestor steels had not gathered, Zichen's blade domain might have been broken at this moment. The 2-colored lotus rushed forward. Under the horrified expressions of more than a dozen rank 6 experts, it exploded directly. This was the 3rd energy explosion, each stronger than the last. And this time, Zichen directly withdrew from the blade domain because of this energy. Because this attack was indiscriminate and did not recognize people. It could even hurt him. He stood outside the blade domain, watching the energy of the exploding thunder lotus raging in the blade domain. The roar of energy could not be heard from the outside, so at this moment, the surroundings were extraordinarily quiet. However, in the blade domain, there were constant screams. Chapter 3105. Everyone was staring at the saber domain in front of them. In the domain, the 9 saber ancestor steels were emitting bright light, forming a domain that was twisting. The yin and yang energy in it was constantly raging like a raging storm. As for the dozen or so rank 6 inside, they could not see them at all and did not know how they were doing. It was quiet all around. No one spoke. It seemed that even the sound of breathing had disappeared. They were petrified, but their minds were under great shock. Zichen stood outside the domain, looking at the domain in front of him coldly. The complete saber domain was very stable. In the past, the domain formed by the 8 saber ancestor steels would have exploded. In the domain, the energy was raging, and screams were constantly heard. Zichen took a deep breath, held the long saber in his hand, and entered the saber domain again. Looking at Zichen, who disappeared again, the Protoss, who seemed to be petrified, woke up one by one and exclaimed loudly. The raging energy was dissipating, and its power was gradually weakening. Zichen, who came back to the domain, perceived the aura of the rank 6. Their aura was very weak, but not all of them were dead. Most of them were still alive. They deserved to be rank 6. They were 2 realms stronger than him and were indeed very difficult to kill. Fortunately, his combat strength was not damaged. Next, it was time to harvest. The strongest in this world was rank 7. Now that the rank 6 could not do anything to him, the next enemy was naturally rank 7. Therefore, before the rank 7 arrived, Zichen needed to collect some interest in advance. The thunderbolt on his body formed a defense. Zichen did not care about the raging energy and rushed directly into it, his long saber constantly unsheathed. The people outside naturally guessed what was happening inside, so they exclaimed one after another, "Sir, please do it." On the other side, the shocked Carmen shouted loudly, his voice trembling. A saber light appeared from a distance and slashed directly at Zichen's saber domain. This saber was extremely powerful, and when it arrived, it released a terrible pressure. Chi. At the same time, a sword light flew from the other side. The sword light was sharp and fast, falling into the saber light. The 2 attacks met, and a powerful wave broke out. The buildings below were constantly collapsing, and countless smoke and dust flew up. No one had expected that this sudden and powerful strike would actually be blocked by a single sword. Because this attack was blocked, Zichen was able to successfully kill the other rank 6. The energy in the territory disappeared. Zichen's figure appeared. In the huge territory, he was the only one standing. The other rank 6 were all dead. The surroundings were in an uproar. Everyone's minds were shaken. Saint Renton was very excited. He had placed his bet on Zichen this time. Once he grew up, it would be very easy for Zichen to support him as the head of the family in the future as long as he was willing. Putting aside the dark, heavenly ant that he controlled, his own combat strength was terrifying enough. However, at this moment, Zichen was clearly not out of danger yet. In other words, the real life and death crisis had just begun. This was because the rank 7s were here. Even though one of them was here to help Zichen, there was only one of them. 2 rank 7s appeared on both sides of Zichen. One held a saber, the other a sword. Then, Zichen noticed that he had seen the rank 7 God Clan member with the sword before. It was the rank 7 God Clan member he had seen at the core of the transaction site. He was stunned. Then, he guessed the identity of the other party and was a little surprised. The other party attacked with a sword and helped him at this time. Obviously, he could only be the real boss of the force he was in. Iron Sword. Iron Sword, are you trying to stop me? A cold voice came from the front. It was the rank 7 God Clan member with the saber. The rank 7 God Clan member with the long sword in his hand said, "You've gone too far." Gone too far? The other party snorted and said, "He killed people in the city. Why do you say we've gone too far?" Iron Sword said sarcastically, "Those who can come here are all shrewd people. There's no need for such a deliberate disguise. Do you think the God Clan will take the initiative to attack you natives in their current situation?" The rank 7 God Clan member was exposed directly. There was no anger on the rank 7 God Clan member's face. He said calmly, "If that's the case, let's talk things out. We have to take the thing away." Iron Sword said in a deep voice, "With me here, you won't succeed." "Just you alone?" The rank 7 God Clan member said. Iron Sword said, "And the God Clan that I represent." The rank 7 God Clan member laughed when he heard that. "You talk big. You want to represent the God Clan? You can only represent your faction, Iron Sword. Moreover, you're going against us. I believe that many people will leave your faction. As for the other God Clans, will they help you?" Iron Sword frowned and said nothing. "Iron Sword, you're just one person. Don't interfere." An old voice sounded. A person flew over. At this moment, he dared to call a rank 7 God Clan member by his name. Obviously, this person was also a rank 7. "This world is ours. We gave you the chance to awaken and gave you resources to grow. You should be satisfied and not cause trouble for us here." Another voice sounded. The second rank 7 God Clan member had arrived. 3 rank 7 God Clans appeared on the side of the natives. However, Iron Sword was still the only one from the God Clan. "Iron Sword, you're no match for us. If you persist, you'll die." A 4th God Clan member appeared. Iron Sword said in a deep voice, "Even if I die, I can kill one person." These people came from different clans. He believed that no one would be willing to be the first to die. So what? Won't it be fine as long as more people surround you? More rank 7 God Clans appeared. One after another, there were more than a dozen of them. Just like the rank 6 God Clans before, these rank 7 God Clans also came from those big clans. Their purpose was very simple. It was for the dark heavenly ant. However, at the same time, they were also here for the ancient tablet that Zichun had just obtained. This was because they did not know the value of the ancient tablet before. Now, they knew. More than a dozen rank 7 God Clans that were rarely seen appeared together. They demonstrated the absolute strength of the clans. Opposite them, Iron Sword was the only one from the God Clan. It was not that the God Clan did not have any powerhouses. It was just that no one was willing to interfere. Iron Sword smiled. There was bitterness and sadness in his smile. He said, "Actually, we're not weaker than them." He did not know who he was talking to. No one responded to him. "Kid, this thing can't stop us. Come out and die quickly." A strong man said to Zichun, who was in the domain. Zichun withdrew the domain and put away the Saber Ancestors tablet. He looked at these rank 7 God Clans. "Hand over what we want. Then, we'll leave you with an intact corpse. You don't have to bargain. We won't let you live if you want to." The strong man continued. He was telling the truth. Even if they could not get what they wanted today, they would not let Zichun live. Zichun was too scary. A rank 4 could kill a rank 6. If he was allowed to grow, then he alone would become the nightmare of all the God Clans. "Okay." Zichun nodded and agreed readily. Such a scene stunned everyone. Was he giving up resistance just like that? However, there were so many rank 7 God Clans. Zichun, a rank 4, had no chance of turning the tables. Death was the best choice. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.